This special 158th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg episode is brought to you by our t-shirt store. Go to addressinggettysburg.com/shop and use promo code AG10 at checkout for 10% off. Our designs feature the works of Mike Stretch of Heritage Depot and Ty DeWitt of 1863 Designs. Be a proud Gettys nerd and support the show with a t-shirt, sweatshirt, tank top, Letterman jacket, and more. That's addressinggettysburg.com/shop, promo code AG10 for 10% off. Audiobook narrator Mike Scott. When selecting your next audiobook, choose from some of the great titles narrated by audiobook narrator Mike Scott, like Bloody Autumn, the Shenandoah Valley Campaign of 1864. And if you're an author or publisher interested in having your written works produced as audiobooks, give Mike a shout at MikeScottVoice.com. Mike Scott, the voice of history.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
I am standing near the Virginia Memorial. It is July 3rd, 2021, excuse me. I almost said 1963. I'm all over the place. We are waiting for the Pickets Charge Walk at 3 o'clock. Matt, what time is it?
It is 2:42.
2:42, according to the clock of Matt McClanahan, Rue McClanahan's grandson. There's several hundred people here already. I'm expecting 1,000 or so. The rumor is that Stephen Lang is going to be here, and Matt Atkinson. So there's three big draws if you count me. I brought about 6 people, so there's my big draw. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 people. Anyway, my point is that we're going to... I don't know, I'm going to walk around, roam around, talk to people. A lot of these people, some of them look friendly. So we're going to see as we're walking who we can talk with and whatnot. That's it for now. Okay, people are gathering now around the eastern face of the Virginia Memorial. There seems to be a color guard there. Hello, Mike Lentz. How are you?
Hi, Matt. Does everybody here know that you're our favorite ranger?
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very humble. Anybody
Not all of us. Does everybody know?
I love it when people thank you. You have a chainsaw.
Why? You want to get cut in half?
No, I had that storm the other day. I have 3.
You need a piker?
I need a chainsaw.
You need a piper?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I work for food.
Okay. I figured if anybody had a chainsaw, I don't know if that skill saw going to cut through this limb. Anyway, I'll get with you, Jim. Thank y'all. Where did I leave off? Oh, it's Spangler. Oh, yeah. You just missed this. You just missed the talk. We were just talking about me wrecking the car the day before I started my senior. Tell them where you saw my car. You know why?
Just kidding, we're unopposed this time.
So Matt has a crowd gathered around him, and the flags left, and people are following them. So I'm not sure they realize what's going on. I'm not sure I realize what's going on. We'll see.
Good. For no reason. He's a good ranger. So I got a surprise for you. Is this anybody's scarf? I found it on the trail. Any Crips missing their scarf?
Might need it.
I may. Yeah. I may. Okay, so let me get mic'd up. How long do I have?
All right, we'll have you do is you'll put it right here.
So Matt is getting mic'd up for the television cameras. Someone from the foundation just came over and let him know that Stephen Lang is here. And Matt said it's a surprise, so I'm guessing people don't know that Stephen Lang is going to be here, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, man, how are you?
Matt?
What do you need us to do? I am.
What happened, y'all?
What do you mean?
I recognize her.
And what's her name?
I don't know, but I recognize her. I told a lady last night, she's standing in the back over there, her name is Pat. I said, Pat, I'd pay you money just to ride the bus with me because she can remember names. And I'm sorry for you nice folks that come up to me all the time and you want me to remember you on a program. Let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that if I remember you, it's not good. Usually not good, all right? You don't want to be remembered. But sometimes y'all stand out.
Matt Atkinson appears to be signing an autograph. The famous government bureaucrat is an odd thing, but it is a real thing here at Gettysburg National Military Park.
People are not able to see you very well.
No, we're going to back everybody. We're going to back everybody up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start making this trek, okay? We're going to back everybody over. If you could get basically where you see the camera, if y'all could get to the left and the right of the camera, and then I'll step out so you can all see you. But if you just basically form a line around this parking lot, let me pick up this stuff. I swear to y'all, you're fine over here. Let's bend this one back out.
Father Matt, 300.
300.
300.
So there are apparently 300 people here. I thought it would be 1,000.
Yeah, for Gettysburg.
Yeah. Our buddy Scott Hancock is here.
Yeah, maybe like Elvis, right? Right. Some Elvis sweat, right, going on right there. Yeah. Elvis said one time he threw one of those stars in the crowd, and he became very alarmed because he gave it to this girl, and the two women on either side, she put it on, the two women on either side grabbed it, and they were choking her. And Elvis was like, no, I'll get you some more. Don't kill her. Okay. All right. Ready to go. I'd like to welcome everybody to Gettysburg National Military Park. My name is Matt Atkinson. I'm from Houston, Mississippi, which is about 30 miles below Tupelo, a little small town. If you ever watched the movie The Horse Soldiers with John Wayne, and you got to be paying attention, but in the very beginning of that movie, he looks down at the map. The camera's not even on John Wayne, but he looks down the map, and he points with his finger. I don't even think, they may say it, but his finger points at Houston, Mississippi. John Wayne. Yep. And Elvis played there in 1955. And somebody was asking me earlier about Zakk Wylde playing that guitar solo in front of me, and that piece of sweat hitting me that night at the concert. Elvis was not famous nationally. And you could walk up. There was no dressing room. There was nothing like that. And there are all these pictures of these teenage girls. They're, of course, older now, much older now in 2021, with their arms, with Elvis with their arms around them. Can you imagine? Well, anyway, Elvis signed one of my study hall teacher's arm. I said, you didn't get anything permanent. She goes, we weren't thinking. I didn't wash my arm for a month till it completely faded. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but yeah, you know. So what we're going to do today, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to do the planning. First of all, we're going to do the planning for Pickett's charge. And let's just be honest here, okay? I've got approximately 300 people here. And I know a lot of you are used to the videos and you like that format and everything, but we just basically have too many people to try to get off into that tactical minutia. In other words, I'm telling you hardcore Gettysburg buffs that we have a lot of Americans here that are on this walk for the first time. And if I get off into the minutia, into the weeds with this stuff, what kind of experience is that for them? So we call it a battle walk. Basically, I'm going to get you across the field. Now, speaking of getting you across the field, when we start out, we got Slash back there. All right. When we start across this field over here, we will have, if you have a medical emergency, we will have a four-wheeler or some type of vehicle, okay, following behind the column. So if you have an emergency, walk backwards, not forwards, to get help. They'll be happy to assist you with whatever the needs are. All right, let's get into the program. Does anybody know who that gentleman is? Anybody dare say his name anymore? Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee. That's right. Lee. When I used to work in the old Visitor Center, some of you go back as far with me to remember that old Visitor Center. The movie Gettysburg used to play in the background all the time, and I could hear the music. I couldn't see the television, but I got to learn that soundtrack so well that I eventually figured out which part of the soundtrack was leading up to that point where they cheer Lee. And I would, if the desk wasn't busy, I would always walk in there to watch those 30 seconds. You can look it up on YouTube if you like, but that was always my favorite scene right there from the movie. But more about the movie in just a minute. Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is here at the Battle of Gettysburg. And Robert E. Lee has a momentous decision in his hands at this moment. Robert E. Lee has been commanding this army for approximately 13 months. When Robert E. Lee takes command, most Southerners, soldiers, press, people, poo-pooed the idea of Robert E. Lee taking command because he was too conservative as far as his maneuvers and decisions and so forth. Lee comes out, he has an enemy army under George McClellan, enemy army in the Confederacy. I'm talking from Lee's standpoint. And they're outside the gates of the Capitol. Robert E. Lee instantly at the end of June of '62 goes into an offensive and in a bloody series of assaults. Setting up Pickett's charge, he pushes back the Union Army. In the last battle of what is called the 7 Days Campaign, the Confederate infantry in July of 1862 charge up a hill called Malvern Hill. And they are slaughtered, those Confederates into the teeth of that. It is 12 months later now, and Lee has fought the Second Battle of Manassas. He's fought Sharpsburg or Antietam. He's fought Fredericksburg, and he's fought Chancellorsville. Has he learned any lessons from the battlefield yet? All right? So, we have to study that. Robert E. Lee wins the Battle of Chancellorsville, as I just said, in May of '63. And the question I want you to do, and with 300 people, this is my main objective today with you. I'm going to start, as I always do, with the big picture. We're going to work our way around. But I want you, my fellow Americans, to put yourself in the shoes of these men on July 3rd of 1863 and ask yourself, and if as far as possible as you can, take a wipe and wipe the grease board clean, so to speak. Wipe your memory clean. We all know what's about to happen. It hasn't happened yet, as Faulkner once said. All right, there's still time. What would you do? Lee has fought all of those battles which I just said, that I just relayed to you. He has spilled dozens, thousands of blood. Thousands of people have been killed, wounded, and maimed. Why do you fight battles? What is the purpose of fighting battles? What is the ultimate objective? To win. You know, it used to fight wars to win. Robert E. Lee, after the Battle of Chancellorsville, finally gets the opportunity to take the initiative. If you watch poker, Robert E. Lee, if you were playing poker against Robert E. Lee, Lee wants to dictate the action in the hand. He wants his opponent reacting to him, not Lee reacting to his opponent. And so with that in mind, and a calculated gamble that Abraham Lincoln would be paranoid about saving Washington, D.C. and force that Union Army to follow him, Robert E. Lee takes on a desperate gamble. He will move the Confederate Army out in front of Richmond to the west into the Shenandoah Valley and basically take Interstate 81, future Interstate 81, all the way up into this area. And then he spreads out all across. And you know what? That Union Army tails right after him. Robert E. Lee gets up here. And as you well know, I don't need to rehash all of this, he is surprised to learn when he gets into Pennsylvania that suddenly the Union Army is a lot closer than he first thought it was. He assumed they were in Virginia. That's the whole debate within itself. Once he realizes that, he calls for a concentration of his troops in a little town called Gettysburg. The reason that he calls Gettysburg for the concentration point is it is the junction of 10 roads from all different directions. Lee wants to go to Gettysburg and threaten Washington and Baltimore and make that Union Army. He thinks the Union Army is moving west, not north. He thinks they're moving west toward Hagerstown to get behind him. Lee doesn't want the enemy behind him. He wants them in front of him. And so he comes to Gettysburg in order to lure that Union Army after him. But he doesn't know how close they are. The Union Army, on the other hand, wants to find Robert E. Lee. They've heard rumors. They've got some basically good intelligence that Lee is up by Harrisburg and over here by the mountains, but they're not exactly sure where they are. The Union Army needs to come to a central location and find out so they can go in different directions and find out where Robert E. Lee is. And so like a magnet, ladies and gentlemen, that road network is going to guide these two armies into Gettysburg. It's all about logistics. We're out here to do the bullets. This is the fun part, okay? But armies move by logistics, supply. I know that's the boring stuff, but that's what Lee calculates. That's what an army commander does. He says to himself, if I march Ewell's Corps 20 miles from here, where are they going to get water? Where are they going to resupply? How am I going to put the supply wagons away from the enemy? How do I protect them? What are the routes? It's just mind-boggling to think about an army in motion. As we well know, at 7:30 in the morning on July 1st, a simple march to Gettysburg is going to be broken by a gunshot, the first shot of the battle. And that kicks off a maelstrom. And basically, just like a barroom brawl, when they start fighting each other, they call for their friends. And just like everybody running in there, they start to fighting it out. Long story short, July 1st ends in a Confederate victory. And I would like to say, we're sitting here studying, what would you do? What would you do? We're sitting here studying this. Robert E. Lee. I always say, with hindsight being 20/20, I'm going to use a little bit of hindsight from my fact. The worst thing that ever happened to Robert E. Lee is he wins the first day. That's the worst thing that ever happened because it sets up the rest of the battle. Out of 7 Union Corps, he is outnumbered. He destroys 2 of those Union Corps on the first day. On the second day, he wants to follow it up. We've done programs on that, obviously, all over the park over the years. But on the second day, he comes very close, and he gains ground. But he comes this close, but he doesn't win the battle. Now it's July 3rd. It's 1863. If you're Robert E. Lee. Oh, and the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg is one of the bloodiest in the Civil War. If you're Robert E. Lee, though, can you walk away from it? Why do you fight battles?
To win.
To win. You didn't come this far without trying one last attempt. And as E.P. Alexander, the Confederate colonel, said, we knew it was a desperate thing to attempt. But Lee had ordered it. And their belief, and that old man up there, their belief in that is just like when you saw Joe Montana coming out of the tunnel. Right? Or I hate to say I'm a Saints fan. When you see Drew Brees, when you saw Drew Brees. Who dat? You think you got a chance because you got a quarterback that can win. There's your quarterback. And Alexander said Lee had ordered it, so it must be all right. These men knew. These men knew. Robert E. Lee wrote in January of 1864, "The result of the day's operations induced the belief that with proper concert of action and with the increased support that the positions gained on the right would enable," that's the right down there, would enable the artillery to render the assaulting columns assistance, we should ultimately succeed, and it was accordingly determined to continue the attack. The general plan was unchanged. Longstreet, reinforced by Pickett's 3 brigades, which arrived near the battlefield during the afternoon of the July 2nd, was ordered to attack the next morning, and General Ewell was directed to assail the enemy's right at the same time. Those 3 Virginia brigades comprised 5,300 infantry. That fluctuates. When I first got out here and did this program, it was 5,800. Then a couple of years later, it was 5,400. But in 2021, it's 5,300. So you'll have to tune in next time to see what the even harder though. It would be, you could get we can get a better sense of Pickett than we can anybody else though that's in this attack. Why? Because the rest of the troops had already been in combat, and their losses are not calculated by day, they're calculated by the whole battle, so it's hard to break down. But the latest study of Pickett's charge estimates that the supporting infantry under Pettigrew's, and they would not like me using the word support. Woo, they'd probably fight me over that. 4,300 infantry under Fry, comprising the brigades of Fry, Marshall, Davis, and Brockenbrough. Backing them up, 1,700 North Carolinians. 1,700 under Isaac Trimble, who was otherwise known as, by his troops as, you'll never learn this on addressing Gettysburg, his nickname was Aunt Nancy. What else would it be? No? Y'all never heard that? And then you've got support troops over here, we'll talk about a little bit later if I remember, under Wilcox, Alabamians, and Lang's Floridians. So you have Virginians, you have Tennesseans, you have Alabamians, you have North Carolinians, you have Mississippians, all here on this field. Am I leaving anybody out? Florida. Don't forget the Floridians. I said Tennessee. It was my pleasure several years ago to work alongside. Not often, but I did meet her a couple of times. She worked in another building. But we used to have, she retired, but we used to have a historian here named Kathy Harrison. And she wrote a book on Pickett's division called Nothing But Glory. And I took this excerpt from it, because I've always admired the book. I've always thought a lot of it. She said this about the Virginians. They hailed from every part of Virginia, these men that were on this field. They came from places like Walton's Mill, Haymarket, Aldie, Dumfries, Buffalo Springs, Chestnut Fork, Prospect Hill, Cascade, Botetourt Springs, and scores of other smaller communities, and larger towns such as Lynchburg, Culpeper, Charles City Courthouse, Charlottesville, and Richmond. Her study concluded the vast majority of the soldiers were farmers, and those who claimed the distinction of planter outnumbered all other occupations by a combined 2-to-1 ratio. Scattered among these farmers were clerks, carpenters, and merchants, and the smaller layers showed numbers of lawyers, teachers, students, laborers, millers, wheelwrights, and masons, along with tobacconists. Some of you would make good tobacconists, as much as y'all smoke on my tours. Sash makers, bakers, plumbers, salesmen, painters, printers, postmen, tanners, well and fence diggers, physicians, overseers, harness makers, barkeepers, auctioneers, and butchers. Their average age was between 22 and 25 years old. The youngest was perhaps 16 in Pickett's division, and the oldest was 46. These are the men that are going to have to execute the commands which Robert E. Lee is about to do, to give them. They're the men that are standing here in these ranks, along with the rest of those states I just named. And folks, they're scared. Do you think anybody on this field, ladies and gentlemen, it's all about the experience. Do you think anybody on this field wants to die? They don't want to die. They want it to be over. They all want it to be over. And they just want to go home. He wants it over. And he is not going to leave this field. Robert E. Lee is not going to leave this field until he pushes it one last time. Lieutenant Colonel Raleigh Martin of the 53rd Virginia said long after the war, "The esprit de corps could not have been better. The men were in good physical condition, self-reliant and determined. Pickett's division hadn't been in combat in a year. They were in very good shape. They felt the gravity of the situation, for they knew well the mettle of the foe in their front. They were serious and resolute, but not disheartened. None of the usual jokes common on the eve of battle were indulged in, for every man felt his individual responsibility and realized that he had the most stupendous work of his life before him. Officers and men knew at what cost and at what risk the advance was to be made, but they had deliberately made up their minds to attempt it. I believe the general sentiment of the division was that they would succeed in driving the Federal line from what was their objective point. They knew that many, very many, would go down under the storm of shot and shell, but which would greet them when their gray ranks were spread out to view. But it never occurred to them that disaster would come after they once placed their tattered banners upon the crest of Seminary Ridge. Standing on this field, though, is that one fervent wish. Maybe this time, this will be the last time. On this field, to show you how there's all different types of men on this field, was the 28th Virginia. And in the command was the father and a son about to go into combat. 41-year-old Captain Michael Peter Spessard and his son Hezekiah. Now, most of you heathens don't know who Hezekiah is. You need to go home and do some reading. That's a joke. You that don't know. All right. The captain had only recently lost his wife and other children. It's the only family he's got left. And they're about to go into combat. Now he's going to march into attack with his only remaining child. What do you think he's going through? Does he think about it? I don't know. I don't know how you deal with it. I got a 13-year-old boy. And I can't imagine. And they doubted themselves, folks. They did. This is what I'm trying to pound into y'all's heads right now. These are not robots. They're mortal. They're mortal. June Kimball from the 14th Tennessee said he played fiddle in the glee club for the regiment. You know, I'd love to have seen that. He was promoted for gallantry at Fredericksburg. This man has been on many a battlefield. He is no coward. Before the artillery opened, Kimball walked to the edge of the woods and looked across, and he did not like what he saw. Realizing just what was before me, quote, realizing just what was before me and the brave boys with me, and at one of the most serious moments in my life, I asked aloud the question, June Kimball, are you going to do your duty today? Kimball responded to his own question, I'll do it, so help me God. Quote, all dread passed away, he later said. And from that moment to the close of that disastrous struggle, I retained my nerve. Walking back to his comrades in the woods, he was asked by the fellow soldiers what he had seen up there. Most of the soldiers never saw the field before they got out on it. And Kimball told them directly, boys, if we have to go, it will be hot for us, and we will have to do our best. All right. Robert E. Lee is just not going to allow them to march across this road, okay, or across this field, unguarded. What he is going to do is basically open up with the largest, one of the largest artillery bombardments. Everybody forgets about Fredericksburg for some reason, but one of the largest artillery bombardments of the war. Now, I was getting audited by my former supervisor. He'll deny this. If you go find him, he'll deny this. But I swear to you, this is what happened. In the old Cyclorama Center, he came back to me and he says, Matt, you got too many guns out there. I said, well, how many guns are there, Mr. Hartwig? And he told me, and I'm telling you, that there are 147 cannons lined up on this field. Not 146 and not 148. That audit was 20 years ago, and every time I go out there, it's 147 cannons. Beyond a doubt.
You just rounded off 350?
Not at Gettysburg. Not rounding anything off. Can't do that. Robert E. Lee, this is predicated on it, ladies and gentlemen. This is predicated. The assault is predicated on the success of the artillery. And if you want to know what's going wrong, it all goes wrong from the beginning. Because the artillery's job is to knock out the enemy, the Union artillery. And those guns, that's a hard task to do with Civil War artillery, especially Confederate artillery, with all the handicaps they have that go with that. But now they have concentration of fire. James Crocker said, when the gun's open, 107, boom! If you want some more Gettysburg trivia, here you go. Want some trivia? Yeah. There are two signal guns fired from the Peach Orchard. Boom! The first one goes off. What you don't know is the second gun misfired. And they had to reprime it. I think that's in the history of the Washington Artillery. So there wasn't a boom and a boom. There was a boom. And then there was a boom. Once they had fixed the problem. One federal soldier said, or federal soldiers, many of them, across that way. Look at those people over there. Look at the cars. That's where the Union position is. You can see the sunlight glistening off those windshields over there. That's all, and you see the monuments if you got good eyes. Union soldiers over there were thinking that by the time 107 rolled around, there wasn't going to be a battle. This wasn't going to happen. And maybe, just maybe, this battle was over with. They noted, that Union officer noted, though, when those cannons went off, and everybody struck their head up. What does this mean? And just like a fireworks display, the crescendo of a fireworks display, the Confederate artillery rolls into action, and the wind is not blowing, and the concussion starts. The Union guns start to respond, and that whole ridge you see over there, you can see in the distance better than you can see in front of you, obviously, with all these people. That whole ridge is covered with smoke. Use your imagination. And all these men are sitting here, laying here, wondering when this is going to be over with, on that side and on this side. James Crocker said, what a roar, how incessant. The art trembled under the mighty resound of cannon. The air is darkened with sulphurous smoke. The whole is enveloped. The sun, lately so glaring, is itself obscured. Nothing can be seen but the flashing light leaping from the cannon's mouth amidst the surrounding smoke. The air, which was silent and serene, is now full of exploding shells, and shot as if the earth had opened and let out the very furies of Avernus. Wish I could write like that. The hurtling and death-dealing missiles are plowing amidst batteries, artillery and line of infantry, crushing, mangling, killing, until the groans of the men mingle with the tempest sound. The storm of battle rages. It was appalling, terrific, yet grandly exciting. One Mississippian further down the line said, if you can imagine this much noise, ladies and gentlemen, further down the line, he said he was laying on the ground, hugging earth like he had never hugged it before, and the leaves were sitting there hovering in front of his eyes. Leaves that had fallen to the ground were sitting there and hovering in the air. The concussion was that great. Boom, boom, boom. It was so many concussions you couldn't tell one blast from another. It's one continuous roar, which I am having a hard time conveying to you. It was loud. Loud, I'm talking about. And they just hugged. The Union soldiers hugged. The Confederate soldiers hugged, hanging on for dear life. The Confederate Armistead's brigades over here in these woods. Cannonballs are coming in. Somebody yelled, "Watch out!" An old Reb raised up to see where the cannonball was going, and he caught it square in the face. Quote, kind friends bore him to the shade, where death eased all of his pain. Gone. Just gone. All gone. What do you do? Lieutenant John Lewis of the 9th Virginia said, man seldom ever sees or hears the like of this but once in a lifetime. And those that saw and heard this infernal crash and witnessed the havoc made by the shrieking, howling missiles of death as they plowed the earth and tore the trees will never forget it. It cannot be told in words. There is nothing to which I could compare it so as it would be made plain to one who had never been there. For 2 long hours this pandemonium was kept up, and then as suddenly as it commenced, it ceased. In the midst of all this, can you imagine? In the midst of all this, these Virginians, especially on this side, and the artillery guns that ran up to the peach orchard, the Confederate artillery, there's one arm, Major James Deering. He's already lost an arm in the war, and in the middle of an artillery fight comprising 230 guns, I rounded it up. 200. Y'all want some jokes, don't you? In the midst of 230 cannons going off, James Deering with one arm is on horseback. And with that one remaining arm, he has the battery's Confederate battle flag in his hand. And he's riding on horseback among his men, among those cannoneers. Everybody saw him on this side of the field. You couldn't miss him. I mean, he's up there. I mean, everybody looked for him to fall. As the infantry were laying there, he came along and he said to them, that hill must fall. That hill must fall. Bracing the infantry for what was about to go. And then it was time. Where did he go? Okay. And then it was time. Longstreet is right here, somewhere in this vicinity, probably right here where you're standing. And Alexander, E.P. Alexander comes up. E.P. Alexander comes up, and he says to him, to Pickett, writes him a note, and he says, you know, I'm running out of ammo here. This is about 40 minutes into it. We always say 2 hours of bombardment. It was about it. Alexander actually dated those notes. That bombardment was really at its crescendo for about 20 to 30 minutes maybe. And then it trailed off because they started running out of ammunition. The plan is falling apart. Robert E. Lee is sitting here in these woods. What he knew and when he knew it, I don't know. But Alexander writes Pickett a note, and he says, we're running out of ammo. If you're going to come forward, you might think about doing so. Okay? If you think about it, what do you do? Pickett receives that note. Alexander picks up his binoculars. He looks toward that copse of trees over there, and in the midst of the smoke, he sees horses gallop up. Can you imagine bringing a team of horses up in the middle of an artillery fight? He sees them limber up to the guns. And they start to withdraw, and that was the first positive sign E.P. Alexander had seen for the last hour of the bombardment. He says, those guns aren't replaced, this is our shot. And he sits down, and folks, this is what your country has done for you. They have preserved this country. Your forefathers have preserved this land. So you could see this very site in which this happened. Your tax dollars have gone to the Library of Congress. And if you go to the Library of Congress, one of the beautiful things that you can pull Alexander's papers, and those that slip of paper, you can hold it in your hand, and you can see that his hand is shaking. Why is his hand shaking? Because he's on horseback, and the cannons are going off, and he can't, the ground is moving underneath it. It's all preserved in time. And he writes a note. And he says to Pickett, enemy guns withdrawing from the cemetery. For God's sake, come forward quick, or my guns can't support you. Pickett takes that note, and he rides back to this location to find his boss, James Longstreet. And Pickett is ready to go. He's got a young girlfriend back in Virginia, and he's ready to go home. George Pickett. We'll talk more about him in just a second. But that conversation starts with Longstreet. Folks, I don't know how I could do it any better, though. I don't know how I could do it any better. What am I going to be doing talking about George Pickett? Right? Why would I be talking about George Pickett when I could have none other than Stephen Lang talk about George Pickett? How about a round of applause?
It's like clamping.
I'd like to say something. We get a lot of movie stars sometimes. But Mr. Lang, ever since the filming, has always been very generous with his time and his abilities to help come out here and support this battlefield. We are very, very blessed to have such a great supporter of our park. Tell us about it.
Good to know that the spirit of Ed Bears lives on. And this is the first battlefield tour since the whole pandemic began, I believe. Isn't that right? Yep. So I think the Park Service deserves a great hand of recognition. You can all applaud yourselves as well for coming out on this very, very significant day, it seems to me. And I'm very glad to be here. George Pickett famously said to General Longstreet coming forward, he said, General, shall I lead my division forward? And General Longstreet couldn't bring himself to answer in the affirmative, so he nodded. But of course, the truth of the matter is this. George Pickett did not lead his division forward. George Pickett directed Armstead, Kemper, and Garnett to lead the division forward while he directed the division forward. And where he ended up is anybody's guess and been a matter of great speculation for 158 years approximately right now. I imagine you might have a few ideas about that yourself, but you'll get to that another time. But in any case, I bring this up merely to point out that I shall not be leading you. But I shall be directing you across I utter these words in the spirit of the lead actor who said, if I'm not there, just start without me. But I'll tell you a story, and I know you're probably on a schedule. I'll take a question or two, but I will tell you a story. There's a few people, some of you seen the film Gettysburg. Yeah. And I come we were getting to the point where Pickett was going to come out and address the troops, which of course he did. And historically what happened was George Pickett walked out in front of his division, and he said, probably quite loudly, you know, remember today, you're from old Virginia, right? He said that, which means about, 200 guys on either side heard him, and the rest of the guys going, what did he say? What did the man say? He said, remember where you're from. All right? Yeah. Anyway, we were getting to that, and I had a really fine horse in the film Gettysburg. His name was it'll come to me in a minute. I forget stuff then. But anyway, and it was a raring horse. So I mean, every scene I never made an entrance without raring the horse up. I'm very kind of cheap. But I said to the director, Ron Maxwell, I said, Ron, I'm not walking in to address the troops. He said, you're not? What are you talking about? I said, I'm riding in to address the troops. And he says to me, yeah, but Pickett walked to address the troops. And I said, well, he should have rode it. And I'm riding in. And and Ron said, okay, all right, good. We can change history. We come, it's kind of a Sophoclean approach to history. We do what men should do, not what they did do. So we shoot the thing, and of course it gets elaborate. I don't just ride in. I'm riding up and down the line, waving my saber and stuff like that. And remember Virginia, and of course somebody's snapping photos, right? And there was a photo that the artist, you all know who Dale Gallen is. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Dale Gallen got a hold of one of these photos of me as George Pickett riding with my saber high, remember old Virginia. And Dale did a painting of it that he called Remember Old Virginia. And what he did, and this is to me the most interesting thing, he, at the bottom of the print, they did a painting and then they did prints of it that they'd sell. At the bottom of the print, he put in all the units and all the commanders. So what he did was he authenticated, right? He made it historic. And that, my friends, is how history is written. Some vain actor decides he ain't going to walk in, he's going to ride in and rear his horse up. Somebody takes a photo, somebody does a painting, somebody annotates that painting, and all of a sudden that's what George Pickett did. I will say this, that I believe that Michael Shara in his time, and Ron Maxwell and myself in our time did more to rehabilitate George Pickett's reputation than even LaSalle Corbell did. So anyway, that's just one story about it. I'll take 3 questions if anybody's got any, and then I'm gonna direct you towards out there. Don't stop for nothing.
Here's the bourbon.
Where's
the bourbon?
Where's the bourbon?
Yeah.
Well, where's my hair? Where's the whole package, dude? By the time Pickett was my age, he's been dead for 20 plus years. Okay, that's one question down. Yes, sir.
A lot of good acting in this movie. What was it like working across from Martin Sheen as Lee?
Well, Martin Sheen's a wonderful actor, and I think he did a terrific job as Robert E. Lee. I have absolutely no beef with anything that Marty did. However, during the scene where Lee says this is all my fault, and Lee did that, well, Marty just couldn't stop saying it. He just kept going, this is all my fault. It's my fault. My fault. I take responsibility. This is all my fault. And I was thinking, enough already. We know it's your fault. It really was his fault. And, you know, and this is the upshot of it, you know. Imagine what there'd be there if he won. That's two questions. What about you, man?
When did you become a lover of history?
Well, I loved Errol Flynn. Does that answer it? I love they died with their boots on. To me, that's what history was. And it's an interesting question in this sense. Why do I feel that I have the right to change history, to say I'm not going to walk out there and talk, I'm going to ride out there and talk? Because I get my history from the movies. Right?
There you go.
That's where I got my history. That's where most of us get. That's where a lot of us get our history, it seems to me. So that's it. I'll take one or two more. Whatever. And I know you just cut me off. I know, you know. But you know what? No, don't cut me off. I didn't cut you off.
You seem to be enjoying him a lot better than you are.
I'm a professional. That's right. Don't keep me waiting in the wings too long. Yeah.
Mr. Lang,
Sir.
How hard was it playing Pickett and then turning it around and having to play Stonewall Jackson?
Well, it wasn't hard for me. I was worried about all the reenactors, if they'd accept me, and bless them, they did. So. Yeah, but for me, you know, understand there was almost a decade in between.
Right.
So, you know, yeah. So it was good. It was good. But of course, Jackson is a more difficult.
Yeah.
It's just more complicated in a way, I think. You know.
Mr. Lang?
Sir.
Yes. So is it true that actors take on their role? That they become like personally involved in the scene, and if that's true, I was just wondering, like, what that was like for you.
Well, you're kind of when you're in a group situation, something like this, and particularly where there's a hierarchy involved, where there's kind of a military thing, and you've got 6,000 reenactors addressing you as general, you might as well give yourself over to it to an extent. You know, don't get crazy. I never actually ordered a man shot, or anything like that. But you know, you get into it. You get into it because, for one thing, it's your job. For another thing, it kind of feels good to do it. You know. Yeah, that's part of what acting is about. This is where reenacting and acting come together. Although there's some reenactors out here, probably, huh? I love y'all reenactors, even though you're nuts. The difference between reenacting and acting is quite significant. You know, I'm sure that there have been PhD theses written about this, but here's the deal. And I don't mean this in any kind. I'm not dissing on reenactors, but understand, reenactors 95% of the time will make the sentimental choice. They are sentimental by nature. Okay? It's just the way, it's why they get into it in the first place. Acting is a very unsentimental craft. There's a place for sentiment, just as there's a place for all kinds of things. But that's one of the main differences between the two. Yeah. Yeah, we go into production in September for Last Full Measure. I'll be doing General Robert E. Lee, and everybody, bring your horses and your guns and meet me here sometime. You know. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. I think Ted Turner's kind of out of the business, so got to find another kind of, sugar daddy. One more. Okay.
Speaking of getting into it, when are we moving out?
There you go. So I'll tell you, I just say, remember, you're from old Virginia. Forward, men. Forward. Woo!
Yeah, that's the mic drop. Yeah, how do you top that? Okay, so let's do this. Let's have a little change of base. I'm not going to try to follow that. And how about another round of applause? That was very nice. Mr. Lang held up leaving town just to come out here and speak to y'all, so I greatly appreciate his time on that. And I've been telling a lot of you that I had a surprise, so I hope you enjoyed it. Now you're stuck with me again. Oh, well.
That's okay.
You know how it goes. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to about face. I'm not going to try to herd everybody, but we're going to try to herd everybody. Direct. Excuse me. Well, let's just basically go down to the end of the sidewalk, to the edge of the woods, and can we form up, like we're in a circle now, but can we form up in a line facing toward the Union position, okay? We'll zoom it there.
I am standing here with Matt Atkinson. Walk with me, Matt. How was that improvising alongside of Stephen Lang?
Well, he really dissed me just then, Matt, really but we're trying to recover from that right now.
I think you did fine before and during, and now after. I'm sure you're going to do well. Matt, tell me how many casualties do you think we're going to take today?
Well, if I keep them standing up, we might have some fainting cases, but I do have a four-wheeler out here, so I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't think we'll actually have any, and I'll tell you why. Because they haven't done any walks before this, so they're fresh.
They're fresh. I'm going to say a couple of twisted ankles.
Well, they're
and it ain't 102 degrees, exactly.
But that's sovereign immunity.
Yeah. Well, we have our buddy Mike Lentz with us, and so we expect that he's going to do it. Thank you very much for your time, Matt.
It's nice to be here, and I'd like to say to all your fellow followers at Addressing Gettysburg, my best wishes. My best wishes to everyone, and I hope you'll continue to send in those donations, because if you could see what Matt was wearing right now, you definitely know that he needed a little kick in the wallet right there.
And by the way, they keep asking to have you on.
Okay, well, we're going to talk.
2 years I've been after you.
Okay, well, we'd come on and talk about. Last time we were talking about Frederick Douglass, and I didn't have anything to say.
No, I know, but now we're going to talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
Mississippi at Gettysburg, Robert E. Lee, whatever.
Okay, all right. Well, we can talk about that.
All right, you heard it here, folks. And you can send Matt emails to encourage him.
Just send them to you with the check.
Send them to me, and I'll forward them to Matt.
Yes, that's correct. I sure am glad to see you out here, though, Matt.
Oh.
You do fine work with that, and I can't tell you how many people have told me that they listen to your podcast out on the field. And oh, yeah, I'm sorry about your bus breaking down, catching on fire the other day about that. You know, if you go on a dog and pony show, you might as well for free. It's a free tour where you're going to get a free bus.
Well, did you hear about the one that hit the telephone pole?
No. Was that a guy?
No, it had nothing to do with me, but I was in front of it and it almost rear-ended me, and I had no clue. Like, I just happened to luckily get out of the way, like, unbeknownst to me.
Clipped it, didn't he? The power went out.
He took the whole damn thing down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Caught on fire. The pole caught on fire.
The whole thing.
It shut down Baltimore.
See?
Wow. Well, you just never know. Was everybody all right?
Don't be unaware of what happened around this lady.
Yeah. Well,
what are they shooting out there?
I'm always the last to know. Always the last to know. Well, let me get up front.
Go ahead.
Hello to all your folks back home, and thank you for all the kind compliments you've sent. I've gotten the messages from Matt, and I'll try to make some time. We'll come on there and have a couple of laughs.
There you go. You heard it first, or second. Whatever. You heard it right now. Thanks, Matt. Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
Oh, you know.
Glad you made it out.
I'm alive. Oh, yeah. Gotta make it out, you know?
Yeah.
Stephen Lang and Matt Atkinson on the same bill.
Right.
That's crazy.
So did you actually get Stephen lined up yet then? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to do it a couple of weeks.
Where's the third one? Okay. I'll need the street boys. If I could use you, I'll get some more kids. You want to help me out? Can you help me out with the bonnet on? All right, you two. I'm gonna need 7. I'm gonna need 9. What are you doing, little man? You won't come? Who else? Come on, darling.
No, you're good there.
I'll put you on for your T-shirt. Come on. I'll put you on for your T-shirt. That's a true fan right there. Especially this year. All right, I got 5. I need 4. Oh, come on. Big kid. Who else? How many have I got? 6. Who else wants to sacrifice their children? You won't?
All right.
Come on. Come on. You want to go? Come on. I'll use you. Come on.
I'll bow.
How many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right.
I'll bow out. Is that all right?
That's all right.
The
That's all right.
kids?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. How'd you escape? Okay, real briefly, and I'm doing this just for I know you Gettysburg buffs know how this works, but I'm doing this for our first-time visitors, okay? Because they are completely overwhelmed right now. My God, they just had Stephen Lang come out. They already spoke to him 30 minutes about some googly gaw. So I'm going to try to show you what this looks like. If I can get y'all to face this way. Oh, and I have something. Where did Walter didn't make it up? Yeah. All right, so let's put you back. Oh, if I can get you, Walter not here yet? No. All right, if I can get you two right here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I get a lot of comments about how I would like to introduce to you Truett and Job, my nephews from Houston, Mississippi. How about that? Yeah, and they find this very, very light touch compared to what their father does. My brother, who is somewhere around here right now. All right, so if I can get y'all, if I can get you to stand right here, if I can get you to stand back over here, this will just put you a step back here, and I get you to step by him, okay? And you'll make a line right through here, okay? Right through here. And if I could get you two, oh, you are cute as pumpkins. Come on over here this side. Is a pumpkin cute? You come right over here and stand right here, just side by side to each other. I got 2 6-year-old twin girls at the house myself. How old are y'all? 9 and 5. Are y'all related? Yeah. Okay. Sisters? Do you like each other? Okay. You get along? All right. That's good. Keep that up. Mine don't. Well, most of the time they do. Right through here. Okay, real fast, folks. Pickett's charge, as I said, to rehash what we had here. I've got them lined up and positioned like they would have been here on the field.
You're
right?
setting up, right? You're setting up right now?
Let's roll then. I'll back up.
All right.
Okay, we're on the edge. I'm sorry I didn't tip you off, and I just threw the cameraman off. All right, so we're lined up right now, and I'm about to show you the deployment of all the brigades that were involved in Pickett's charge. So let's go at it. Let's see how good Matt's memory is right here. This nice lady right here would be James Kemper's brigade, and he would have been located all the way down, basically his right flank. Hold out your right arm. Just stick it out right there. His right flank, the right flank of the Confederate assault, would have been all the way down at the Sherfy farm, basically at the peach orchard. Most people don't realize it went that far. This gentleman right here is Mr. Cal Ripken, otherwise known as Richard Garnett. Richard Garnett would have been positioned right in front of you. If there's one thing that surprised me, ladies and gentlemen, when I got here to Gettysburg and started studying this battle as a historian, I had read about Gettysburg 1,000 times through the course of my own, hobby, and it just blew my mind that Garnett's brigade was not here where we are. It was out there on that first rise. That's where the Confederate infantry, at least this brigade and this brigade, are going to be on that ridge line right out there. Now you start to see what Robert E. Lee is thinking. Now, from here, and back here, none other. Lewis Armistead. Got a little bit too much hair. But this is old Lou Armistead. Armistead is in that wood line right behind you. And they would have been cocked back there. So, Kemper, Garnett, Armistead, back here in these woods to your left rear. My nephew right here. All right? This would be Burkett Fry's brigade of Tennessee and Alabamians. This would be the one that June Kimball was in, that I read you the quote from before. They would have been right over there in that first little line, that first little smidget of woods, that point of woods which you see right there. That'd be basically, they'd be following that fence line where if you can see that kid coming in the yellow shirt running down, his mama's trying to catch him right now. Run, old rabbit, run. Right here, we have the former brigade until July 3rd. On July 2nd, it was under the command of James J. Pettigrew. And by July 3rd, it was under the command of Colonel Marshall. Fry, Marshall. Hello. Joseph Davis, Mississippians and North Carolinians. You know your history? Yep. You're not going to like this. Okay, you're Brockenbrook.
That's
good. All right, well, that's the way it goes. That's what you are. And if you know your Gettysburg history, you know he's not going to, you don't have to work too hard. All right. All right, if I get you to step over here, can I borrow one of you? Stand behind him. You stand behind her. Right through there, and don't shoot me with that pistol. All right. Duel of Honor. Trimble's division, formerly under Pender, who was mortally wounded the day before. That's how things are flying. Isaac Trimble came into Pennsylvania without a command, but he expected a vacancy to open up, and by God, one did. And he irritated Robert E. Lee and Richard Ewell so much that they gave him one just to shut him up. His two brigades, Lane and Lawrence, on July 3rd, are going to be comprised by these two gentlemen right here. In a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, going back to the whole theme of this program, put yourself in the shoes of these men, of these leaders. Look at this formation which you have right here. Oh, and I forgot. What is your name? Lexi and Laney. Lexi and Laney, ladies and gentlemen, are comprised of Wilcox's Alabamians and David Lang's Floridians. All total, if you include these two brigades, which are small, based on the losses that were yesterday, on their previous day, when they had attacked the same position, Robert E. Lee has approximately 13,000 men in this line. Now, if you can see, if you can watch from here, look at the brigade formation. Where's the weakness of the line? Where's the weakness? Where's there a lack of depth to it? The lack of depth is the flanks. The weakness to the line is all the way over where you see that distant wood line in that area. There is nobody right here. Okay? They don't have anybody over here. They have two brigades in front and over here. Now this is going to come back to haunt them, the way that the formation was set up. When Robert E. Lee rode the line personally before the attack began, he looked out among these troops, and these from Heath's division, now under Pettigrew, had been in combat 2 days before. And they were putting in the 2nd Mississippi. I'll give you an example of why these men shouldn't have been in this attack. In the 2nd Mississippi, they stripped the litter bearers and the cooks and gave them rifles just to fill out the ranks. Normally, you don't do that. That is only in desperate situations. And when Lee rode the line, apparently he didn't know the condition. He should have known. A valid criticism of Lee. Nobody got that joke. Okay, so it's a lightning joke. Okay, never mind. It'd be one way to go, wouldn't it? See Stephen Lang and then watch me go. And Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee rides that line. He says these men shouldn't have been here. Some of them should go to the rear, is what he exactly says. These men should go to the rear. But it's too late. It's too late. The cannonade is underway, and there is no more shifting of these troops. As soon as it began, it almost certainly just ended. And as the fire slackened off, to go back to where we left at the last spot, George Pickett is going to come riding up to James Longstreet. And he's going to ride up to him, and he says he'll present him that note that I described to you from Alexander. And he will ask his commander the fateful question, General, shall I advance? And Longstreet doesn't say anything. Now, the only account we have of that, ladies and gentlemen, is from James Longstreet. I'm doing this for you Gettysburg buffs right now. I cannot base this on anything but conjecture, but I wouldn't be telling you this unless I thought I was right about it. Longstreet writes that it seems from his writing that Pickett came up and he sat there and debated it a moment and then turned away and gave him permission. I think that Longstreet took a lot longer than that. I think Pickett stood there for several minutes. I couldn't give you the exact minute, and I don't know how many times he came back. But Longstreet, who was in overall command of all these brigades, even Lena and Lexi over here, he didn't want to do it. James Longstreet, in charge of this assault, the lives of these men. I don't blame him. I don't cast any aspersions on him for not wanting to do it. That's actually a pretty smart idea on his part. But nevertheless, you have a man in command that doesn't want to do it. And you know your work usually reflects your attitude about the matter, so to speak. I think he stands there. But eventually Longstreet will give the permission. He'll give it the nod, if you believe Longstreet's account. And Pickett will salute him. And then they will bring up a big horse. Nobody liked this Stephen Lang joke. Okay, so that rares a lot. But Pickett will go out, and right here, where we're standing, you would have seen him. He took his hat off, and Pickett had these long, flowing, natural curls. Oh, he was a Jim Dandy. And in an army of stinking men, he kept them perfumed, always smelling good. In an army of dirty men, Pickett always had a white shirt. Oh, yes. Stephen Lang, I always picture Pickett. Lang was with that laugh that Lang has when he portrayed him right there. I can picture Pickett doing that. Pickett rides out in front of his men and he says, "Up, men, and to your post, and let no man forget today that you were from old Virginia." And with that, the Confederate infantry starts across this field. Couple things before I break up the kids right here. This is why you come out on the battlefield. From that tree line, not the direct one, but the one behind it, the one you drove down to park your car today, West Confederate Avenue. It is it varies, but approximately 1,400 yards from there to the white buildings, which you see on the other side. From the ridge, which you see in front of you, where Garnett's brigade would have been, to the Union position, now it's a little bit further, 800 yards. Already, when this attack starts going forward, it's already falling apart. Why? Because Pickett moves first. Pickett has the shorter amount of distance to go. He should have moved last if you wanted to coordinate everything. So these soldiers over here are playing catch-up from the very beginning, trying to get aligned with the rest of Pickett's division. In other words, Pickett's division is going to be at the Union position before the rest of these brigades get there. Make sense? That's another thing. Remember, folks, they had roughly like 5-6 hours to plan this thing. It's easy for me to criticize it. I've had 158 years. Okay? They just overlooked it. It should have been coordinated, but that's the little things that'll come back to haunt them. Right through here.
158. You look good for 158.
Well, thank you. Thank you. 158, I feel pretty good. All right. Any questions before I break them up about it? Anything not clear? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I guess Pickett says, "Shall I advance?" And
yes.
Longstreet says, "Yes." And so I guess what I'm confused about is that why Pickett moves first, or was Pickett not supposed to move at all, and then he was just getting permission to move?
Longstreet just didn't think about it. Pickett is I would say it's more of a matter of a collusion of several different circumstances. Longstreet's here with Pickett, and you got Alexander. I'm getting way in the weeds with you, but Alexander only commands half the artillery. But Longstreet, to back up, this is the part that probably confused. I didn't say this. But Longstreet threw the decision to advance the infantry, to order the infantry forward on a lieutenant colonel of artillery. He says, Colonel, you will advise General Pickett when the time has come to advance the infantry, or something along those lines. And so Alexander is doing those notes I told you about. He's advising Pickett, like Longstreet told him, to advance, and Pickett in turn goes to Longstreet to get the green light. Does that make sense? And Longstreet, the answer to your question, Longstreet just didn't think of it.
But I'm saying, if he hadn't gone to Longstreet, would he have not moved?
No, he wouldn't move without permission. No, he wouldn't. No. These men were, they laid out here in the sun they got here at 9 o'clock in the morning and then didn't advance until around 2:30 in the afternoon. So they're out here, they didn't move. 5.5 hours. Y'all know, some of you have been in the military. You just don't do anything without orders. That answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Anything? Yes, sir.
So one quick thing. If Armistead was here, Garnett and Kemper up front there, it almost seems as if Armistead's brigade was starting to move even before Garnett and Kemper. So they were kind of closing the supporting gap.
Well, what ended up happening, I'll show you the whole thing. I'll have to maneuver them, though, which I don't do much anymore. But basically what happens is I should have relatives on the tour all the time. Yeah. Hug it out. All right, so what happens is, in answer to your question, she's going to move last, and these two are going to move first. So take a step forward for me there, Oriole. He goes forward a little bit. Garnett goes forward, and then I'm going to talk about that at the next stop, so I don't want to do too much. And then he starts coming forward, all right, and then he's already moving out. And then she gets the order, because it's being relayed. They're not all starting at once. These people over here, Pettigrew's division, never got the order.
Yes, they have messengers.
Fry's brigade, right here, of Tennessee and Alabamians, are going to start advancing when they see the Virginians go. Oh, okay, here we go. Well, there's a delay in that. And because this is what the battlefield teaches you, and I'm getting way off in the weeds with this one, but if you go on the other side of that tree line and look at the North Carolina monument from the north looking south, you can't see over the other side of the North Carolina monument. So this regiment, the brigade, of Brockenbrough, can't see what's happening. And Davis right here, they can't see, so they're lagging behind. If I could get you two to step out, you two step toward me, right here. They step out, and these two don't move. So you've already got them disjointed because these aren't moving. Does that make sense? They're trying to catch up. Brockenbrough, I'll go ahead and cover this. You're going to like this. Yeah. Gets about 400 or 500 yards out in the middle of that field out there, and his boys decide they've had enough of this show. And woo, there they go. They didn't like Brockenbrough. If I'm mispronouncing, send me a letter. But they start running back, which leaves, if you'll go over here, if you'll fall out, that now leaves who? Davis Brigade as the left flank. Now you've already lost one brigade. And what they're literally going to have to do and try to shore this up, step over here, is this rear line is going to have to, they're going to send back for help, and this rear brigade under Trimble is going to start marching at left oblique, if you will, to try to fill in the gap. They'll basically never get there. But see, now I've taken away center mass, how it's going. It's all on the fly. I used to think they were moving like minions. No, they're not moving like minions. All of this is being decided on the fly. I want to save the second half of that to where we get to our next stop, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody wave at Jason out there. He's taking your picture right now. If you'd like, Jason, we're taking your picture. There you go. All right. Take Jason's picture while you're at it. You're on TV. You want to get the kid. How about a round of applause for these kids? Okay, y'all can go. Thank you. All right, so what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, if I could get in front first, what we're going to do is we're going to go, you see where Jason is, we're just going to come into a column. Look, folks, we're going to take this one, not that one. We're going to take this one. And when we get to the next stop, when you cross through there, I'm going to have some rangers at the top of the next rise. And when you come through the rise, it doesn't have to be perfect, but basically go to the left and the right, and we're going to go from column to formation again. We're going to make another T, like we are here, okay? And we'll do our next stop up there.
Love the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I got one.
What's your name?
Joe McDonald.
Joe, nice to meet you.
Hammer and Nails.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. I know you.
I don't wear women's stuff.
All right, we've advanced across the field just a short piece, and we're now standing here. Let me get my microphone adjusted again. We're now standing here at about midway across. Now look at the Union position. Now, if you look behind you to your right rear along this fence right here, this is Garnett's brigade that I was talking about. This is the first line of Pickett's division right here. Now look at, this is what Robert E. Lee is looking at. This is what preserving the battlefield does. That is 800 yards to that Union position over there, and Lee is thinking that the shelter, look at this swell we're about to go down through. Lee is thinking, ladies and gentlemen, that this ground, this undulating, there's a big word for you. Teacher likes that, doesn't she? This undulating ground which you have right here, it's going to hide his troops until they get to the Emmitsburg Road. I can't tell you how amazed I was, once again, studying this in Houston, Mississippi, 879 miles from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I can tell you to the exact mile. All right. I never realized that this ground, at least for Pickett's division, is not flat. Now, you people over here, especially on the left flank, have a better view. Now look behind you. Now you can see where the rest of the Confederate infantry is coming from. They're crossing that field. Okay, so let's go back. If I get my nephews up here again. Don't act too much. Come on, Walter. You on in too there, Bernie Kosar? Come on. Let's line up. We're just going to line up in a line right through here. Stand right here. Stand right here. There you go. Now we get me a ranks right through here. Okay. So somebody was asking me at the last stop, hey, you know, which is moving first? Who is doing what? Here. The original order, and this shows you what these men had to go through. The captains, the lieutenants, the colonels, all that stuff, trying to figure it out. The original order was to guide to the right, which means all these boys shift to the right. Wherever he goes, they stay locked on him. Literally, when these Confederates stand up and they start toward this field right here, the order comes to guide to the left or guide center in this advance. In other words, Burkett's Tennesseans right here will become the brigade of advance. What does that mean? That means that Truett over here is going to guide by his left flank onto his brother, right? If there's a gap that opens up, then you will guide, right? Shift. You will guide center, guide center, guide center. On the other side of Burkett Fry, you have what? You have these troops guiding right, and they're aligning on here. So come up and align again on him. Right through there. Come on up. Step up. Come on, Bernie. All right. So, you don't even know who that is, do you? He was quarterback. What year? 80s? All right, so here's your once again putting them in brigade formation. When Garnett receives orders that he's supposed to guide left instead of guide right, he's moving out in front. And so what he does is perform an oblique. Now, folks, this is what part of the big plan was I was going to try to do with y'all. But I didn't realize till today that we got crops in these fields. But I was actually going to try all 300 of us in an attempt to show you how they got their position from here to where we're headed right up there, where you see all the large monuments. Now look, this is what the battlefield teaches you. If Kemper and Garnett's brigades went straight ahead, where do they go? They go straight toward the Pennsylvania Monument and the United States Regulars Monument and the Vermont Monument. They go straight ahead, right past Jason. He'd take every one of them's picture as they go down through there. How do the Confederates end up getting to where we're going, the stone wall and the copse of trees? They perform an oblique. We can do it together. I want everybody to stand straight right now. All right, just stand straight. You're going to be that soldier out here. When they got going, they ordered an oblique, which means everybody, instead of marching this way, everybody turns 45 degrees. And you march this way. I'm going to have the boys show you right here. Okay, line up. Let's get shoulder to shoulder. All right, we'll practice this. Okay. All right, now you're forward. Now when I say oblique, I want you to turn at 45 degrees. That's all you got to do. It's pretty simple. 45 degrees. Okay, try it, Walter. There you go. Not so far. You're about at right angles. About right here. Now you turn. Now you turn. Now you turn. Now you turn. Now walk a little bit. Walk for them. Show them. Just go forward. They'll follow you. Go ahead. That's how they work. All right, halt. Now front. Front. Face toward me. Okay, march forward. March toward me. Straight line. Come on. Pruitt, come on. Been playing too many video games. Come on. I got a laugh out of him. Little man always gets squeezed out of a big line, don't he? All right. All right, so that's the way they would do it. Come forward, keep marching, march forward. Now I'm going to tell you to oblique in just a second. All right, when you do that, you're going to turn 45 degrees. All right, oblique. Move forward, move out. See how they do? Halt, front, forward. You see how they do that? The whole brigade comes out here and they front and they start moving this way. Well, what's the problem with that? The other Confederate brigade is guiding to the left now too, but they can't oblique. If they oblique, they'll go right through what? The front of the Union line. So what do? I'm getting real complicated here. Kemper turns at left flank. All right, he starts marching this way. Where'd my boys go? My boys. When they're marching, y'all oblique. Point that way, oblique. Turn 45 degrees. While he's doing that, look, Garnett is moving away. See how Garnett is already in front of Kemper? They're disconnected. Kemper then marches, instead of like this, Kemper marches at right angles like this to connect. Does that make sense? The big thing is not you understanding this. The big thing which I want you to take away from this, ladies and gentlemen, is all of this was not planned. None of it was planned. And these officers are committing these, these changes on the fly. I mean, there's literally staff officers riding up to Dick Garnett telling him to change to guide center. And he's like, wait a minute, that wasn't the plan. Well, that's the plan now. And so the whole attack, I'm building up to the climax, but it's a wonderment that they ever got there with all the obstacles which they had out front. Let me see if I got any quotes for you.
If only Longstreet had time to plan the attack.
The comment was a positive one about Longstreet. There will be no more comments.
That was sarcastic.
I know. Yeah, who knows? Oh, I forgot they were there. Boys, come on back here. You got lost in the moment.
Poor kids.
Why don't you just come up here and just stand behind me? You get some camera time there. Don't pick your nose. It'll be on forever. All right? You'll never live down. All right. Okay. I want to tell you a story right now, because at the beginning of the tour, I started talking to you about how these were mortal people, how these are just men out here trying to survive. I told you at the last stop about Captain Spessard going into battle with his son, Hezekiah. All right? Well, they get about right here. They're members of the 28th Virginia. And in long after the battle was over, like 40 or 50 years later, Colonel Eppa Hunton was writing his reminiscences from the 8th Virginia, was writing about what he recalled from Pickett's charge. And the thing that stood out to him about the advance was that he was riding his horse right through this area, and he came across an officer. He had his back to him, and he couldn't see what he was doing, but he rode up and basically reprimanded him for not being with his command. What are you doing here? You know, he thought he was trying to duck out. And that's when the captain turned around and looked up at the colonel. And when he looked up, let's have you lay down right here. Let's put you down right here. All right. When he looked up, make some kind of moaning sound. You want me to kick you? When the officer turned around, Eppa Hunton, who was mounted on horseback, could look down and he could see what the captain was doing. And laying on that ground was Hezekiah. Hezekiah had been a piece of shell had come in and had burst overhead, and a piece of shrapnel had come down and hit Hezekiah somewhere in the upper abdominal area. That captain, Spessard, I already told you what he'd lost so far. That captain turned around and he looked up at that colonel and he says, "Look at my poor boy, Colonel. Look what they have done to my poor boy." Now he faces the ultimate dilemma. I told you I was going to put you in their shoes. A lot of you are parents, have been parents, going to be parents. Not anytime soon. A lot of you have obviously can make this connection, because I'm a parent too. What would you do? It's your boy laying there. You're the captain. The captain's in charge of the company. What do you do? What do you do?
Give him medical attention.
Okay. What about your command?
Leave it to someone else. Leave it to one lower rank than me or a higher rank.
You could. I wouldn't blame him if he did. Would anybody blame the captain if he didn't go? I don't think I would. Why would you go forward, though? Why would you leave that boy? Why would you do that? Because you had to do what? You had a command. You had your duty to do. And that's exactly the decision he makes. I imagine that ripped Spessard, that captain, apart. But he got a canteen. I'm sure there was plenty laying around, but he grabbed the canteen and he gave it to his boy. Knelt in his arms. He let him back down on the ground. You sure have been prostrate for a while. He knelt down with his boy, and he gave him a drink of water and kissed him on the forehead. Would you like Uncle Matt to kiss you on the forehead? No? I guess family only goes so far. Huh? So he kissed him on the forehead, and then he gets back up. He gets back up, and he rushes forward to take back over his command. Now, of course, they didn't refer to themselves 2 years into the war by those big nicknames that they had, but his company, when they left for the war, was known as the Craig Mountain Boys. If I ever get to Craig Mountain, I'd like to find that place. I bet it's a pretty spot down in Virginia. But the Craig Mountain Boys, when he returned to that command, soon a messenger came from the colonel of the 28th Virginia with a reprimand for Captain Spessard because he was rushing his company out in front of the rest of the line. Why would Captain Spessard be so hell-bent on getting to that Union position? Because he wants what? He wants payback for him. Can you feel, ladies and gentlemen, the emotion? You know, I can sit out here and tell you these stories. I can sit out here and talk till I'm blue in the face. It's you that has to put yourself in the shoes of these men and decide what you would do. Somebody asked me the other day, could you go across this field? Do you think you'd march across this field? And I thought about it a while, and I came back to him and I says, you know, that answer I wouldn't know until I had to do it. I'd like to say I would, that I wouldn't let my comrades down, but until I had to step out there, I don't know what I'd do. You never know what you'd do. And I don't know what I'd do if I was Michael Spessard. We'll come back to them in just a minute. All right. Before we go forward a little bit, I want to cover one more point. We'll get going. One of the Confederates wrote, going back to them marching down through here. Once again, Kemper. Oh, I'm sorry. How about a round of applause for old Joe? Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. We got hamburgers and hot dogs at the house. You didn't hear that. He asked what time. Well, I still got a few things to pick up on the list. You could help me out. I don't know who said that. Tater salad. No, we're having baked beans and 5-cheese bacon macaroni. Well, there might be. If you see the ambulance headed out to Cashtown, that'd probably be a good indication that they like the macaroni. All right, so when the Confederates start obliquing, everybody talks about, or we have grown accustomed to, which is not exactly false, that the copse of trees, I'll come back to the copse when we can see them again, but it's not the first trees you see around the red building, the Cadore farmhouse right here, but go to the left of those trees, and it's the tallest trees you see to the left of them. That's the copse of trees. We have grown up as Gettysburg buffs as saying that was the objective of the Confederate assault. That is true, and it is not true. When they step off on the field, their first objective, ladies and gentlemen, is that barn. That's what they're guiding on. Think about it. If I told these boys, where are you going? I guess we'd know what you'd do. You'd duck out with Mom, I guarantee. I would too. I'd still live with my parents too if I could. Clean sheets, something well, ain't much in the fridge, but I'd eat out a lot, but it'd be nice. All right, so if I told all these boys to walk in a straight line toward the Cadore barn, everybody would go in different directions because everybody's got a different idea of a direct line. That's pretty simple. So they guided upon the barn. And once they passed the barn, that's when the copse of trees becomes the objective. That's the splitting of hairs, I'm telling you. But that's basically how that happens. Does that make sense? Any questions?
At what point can Union rifle hit these men?
I'll tell you, but basically when we get near the road. They'd be popping at them right now. Yeah. There'd be sharpshooters along Emmitsburg Road, but not a mass line of men. I don't know how many, but say, 40, 60 Union troops along through there. But the sharpshooters would be picking off the officers. It's a dirty business. Artillery would start. I was gonna go down in the bottom of the swell, and we'll talk about the artillery when we get down there. Yes. Calvert Hall. Yeah. Rugby player. Yeah. You still got all your teeth.
Actually, I broke them.
Oh, you broke them. Those aren't real. Okay. All right. You're a real rugby player.
Yeah. So, for those two Confederate brigades that were out further, and you said they got here at 9, I have two questions about that. Wouldn't the Union have seen that, and wouldn't they also have been able to fire at them?
They could have fired at them, and to take your question on a broader scale, how about when the Confederates, Alexander, Longstreet's half of the artillery had 75 guns in position out of 83 that they had. So 75 guns go in position along the crest, and Alexander always never understood why the Union allowed them to deploy the artillery without any aggression, or counter battery fire, but they allowed them. They came up piecemeal, and sort of pushed them in. So going to your direct answer to your question, you can't see it. I'm sorry, sir, with these people, but if you'll come back out where we were, the second stop at the edge of the woods right out here, and look off to the south, you'll see that there's a deep swell. So they didn't march out of those woods up into this position. That's what your problem. They actually did a roundabout way to get into position. They stayed out of sight. They ordered, this is a good example, they ordered that the colors remain cased. In other words, don't be going out here and waving rebel. You don't want to, you want to keep it quiet. You want to keep it quiet. But you're not asking really what the real question is. Why march these men out here and deploy them at 9 o'clock if you're going to make them sit here until 2:30? That's hard on infantry. And it was hot that day. This is one of the best anniversary days I've ever had. And some of y'all have been with me a while. It's pretty good weather. They were marched out here that early because Lee is expecting Longstreet to assault at 10 o'clock. That slipped. We're back to Longstreet. Any others?
The season is finally here. 2021 is going to be a great year, and we know that you're going to come down to Gettysburg. And when you do come down to Gettysburg, you got to take a tour with Getty's Bike Tours. Getty's Bike Tours has been in business since 2005. It is the best way to see the battlefield. Why? Because you don't just see the battlefield, you experience the battlefield. Our tours are led by some of the finest licensed battlefield guides out there, and they make sure that you walk away with a full understanding of what happened here on those 3 days in 1863. Here's the best part. Because you're an Addressing Gettysburg listener, you're going to get 15% off when you make your reservation. Now, this discount only applies to tours, so go to gettysbike.com or call 717-752-7752 and book a tour today. There's no better way to see the town you're visiting than to eat your way through it. And there's no better way to eat your way through this town than with Savor Gettysburg food tours. Enjoy a culinary and cultural experience through historic downtown Gettysburg, one delicious bite at a time. Their season runs from April through November with the special Christmas Tastes and Traditions walking food tour during the month of December. So go to SavorGettysburgFoodTours.com and enter promo code AG2021 to receive $5 off your tour. Eat, walk, get a taste of history with Savor Gettysburg. Have you noticed our revamped website at addressinggettysburg.com? Well, that's the fine work of a man named Mike Stretch, and he also redid our logo for us. Both of them I originally designed, and both of them were originally horrible. But now they're nice, and that's all thanks to Mike. Mike has an awesome t-shirt company called Heritage Depot. There you'll find great designs based on Gettysburg and the Civil War with t-shirts and other types of merchandise. So go to heritage-depot.com and spruce up your Gettys Nerd wardrobe. That's heritage-depot.com. Our favorite bookstore in Gettysburg is For the Historian, located at 42 York Street. Isn't it, Eric?
You're darn tootin', Matt.
It's because they have the best selection of Civil War books in Gettysburg, both new and used, and online they have even more books to choose from.
But Matthew, what if the Civil War is simply not my thing?
Not a problem, my fine four-fendered friend. This is For the Historian, after all. They cover history from the ancient world to the 21st century with a strong selection of World War II and American Revolution books.
It's astounding how they squeeze thousands of titles from Osprey, Savas Beatty, UNC Press, and more into their store.
And it's also astounding how you and I both squeeze into our pants every day. Well, handsome, they have a warehouse too, and that's where they keep all those books that are available online at forthehistorian.com. And folks, if you go to forthehistorian.com now and order books until you're blue in the face, be sure you mention that you heard about them on Addressing Gettysburg Gettysburg in the Note to Seller box, and they will refund your shipping costs.
What if I prefer to browse in the store and don't want to go online to get my books?
Great question, Doodlebug. Just mention addressing Gettysburg at checkout, and they'll take 20% off the retail price of your item. So go to forthehistorian.com, stop by 42 York Street, or call 717-685-5207. That's forthehistorian.com or 717-685-5207. Gettysburg, A Nation Divided mobile app is relaunching this summer. Gettysburg, A Nation Divided is an award-winning mixed reality mobile application using augmented reality technology. It transports users into the most crucial moments in the Battle of Gettysburg, the turning point of the Civil War. Users can listen and watch historic figures share their stories as lifelike animated avatars, traverse 360-degree image sequences of the battlefield. Its cinematic battle sequences are narrated by actor Scott Eastwood. The mobile app is available for free on iOS and Android. It's designed to be used anywhere, at home, at school, at the park, or at Gettysburg National Military Park. It uses GPS to help guide you through your journey to see the stories and events unfold at the exact location where they occurred. So go into your phone's app store and get it now for free. That's Gettysburg, A Nation Divided.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
I don't know where you went.
Oh, yeah.
Lost you.
In the fog of war.
Yeah.
Broke out the old illustrated atlas of the Civil War that I carry around. I always carry around.
Does that have anything to do with this?
Yeah. It's got the. It's got all the different maps and everything. Just got the breakdown.
Oh, okay, yeah, it gets into detail.
Oh, yeah. It kind of shows you the obliques and gives you a good map and overview of everything.
We did our first get out of the car tours. The first one we did was with Matt of Garnett's Brigade. Started over there and walked along this way. We're getting in this way. Well, he'll talk about it. He'll say, I don't want to ruin it.
No. Spoiler. I didn't realize until today. I didn't realize that they were that far advanced. I didn't realize that they were on this ridge.
Well, that's what I was going to start to tell you, was that, like him, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
I thought they were all in the woods because of the goddamn movie.
I know. The movie's the best thing that ever happened, and also like a great, promoter of mistruths,
Yeah, but it's good though, because then when you finally learn the actual fact, you kind of it sticks more.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Well, and Lee's decision, it's still a bad decision, obviously, but it doesn't seem as bad because they're a lot closer. So you think maybe I can just get this just a quick punch and puncture the line or something.
Right. I think this is more than 300 people.
Got it. I think it's 500, but I don't know that maybe.
I was going to say 303.
Well, I think they got an early count on that. More people probably
have joined.
Filtered in as time went on.
They would have had a ton of people if they had told Steve that Stephen Lang was going to be here, but they must have kept
them telling.
I know.
Well, Matt, you can put your fear at ease if we're going to come across an area with no agriculture out there.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, I was worried about that. I was worried about the crops.
Yeah, the crops. Yeah.
As a farm boy, I was. Oh, George, not the livestock.
Yeah, like, I had to tell him to calm down.
That's right.
Thought he's about to lose it back there.
What are you seeing? This is soybeans.
These are soybeans.
These are soybeans right here.
As we walked in fields of soy.
And then you'll notice the small nipple on the plant where they get the soy milk from.
I was looking for a nipple. Oh, that's funny. It's where they get the milk from.
That's where they get the soy milk from.
Oh, good stuff.
Tough job, somebody has to do
Somebody,
it.
yeah, have to find people with great
The
grills
soy
to be able
teat
to-
milker.
That's right.
Well, there's been this debate about child labor.
Right, that's right.
Okay, so like that. I can get it positioned here eventually. I think by staying like this, I can get away with.
Can I have a seat? I don't want you passing out.
Would you like to make a? Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Would you like to? With my boss, which I have a very good boss, would you like to give my boss a heart attack? Yeah. See my boss have a heart attack real fast. Will you stand up for a second? This will give my boss a heart attack. There you go. There you go. You can't be sitting down.
You need a cold drink then, too.
Cold drink, yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, yes. The Battle of Leyte Gulf. All right, so thank y'all for holding up. I appreciate all your attention. Okay, so if everybody could look behind them now you can see, you probably never looked at this before, ladies and gentlemen, now you can see how the ground kind of a little ridge there going up toward the Klingel house and what used to be the Rogers house, okay? That is where Kemper's brigade is going to be coming from. They'll be marching straight toward us. The reason I stopped you here is because this is where the Confederates would have stopped to reorganize. In other words, their line had gotten out of kilter and they needed to get back in a straight line, which didn't work. All right, but this is where they would have done. See how they're hidden? Or they thought they would be hidden. See how we've changed fronts and we're moving 45 degrees toward the Union position? Now, one of the things that the Confederates talked about is when they got here and they started drinking their water, see you there, when they started drinking their water, adjusting their packs or whatever, getting their ammunition ready, clearing their guns, probably only took a few seconds. There was dozens upon dozens of Union cannons. Everybody can see the top of the Angel over there, the Pennsylvania Monument. To the right of that was about 40 to 50 Union cannons. And they opened up. And the shells started coming. The problem for the Confederates and why this stuck out in the veterans' minds that made it through this assault is because their lines are like this, and the shells, instead of coming at them, are actually coming down the flank. So if you send a solid shot, which is basically a 12-pound bowling ball, if you fire that thing over here and you hit the line at right angles, you're using human beings as 10 pins, and you can knock a lot more down than if you were in a two deep rank formation. Does that make sense? There was one shell or a cannonball that came ricocheting through here that knocked down a dozen men at one fell. I mean, can you imagine? Those dozen men right there are all from the same community. Wiped out. All gone. You get touched by a solid shot at that velocity. There's very few nicks that go along with being hit like that. So anyway, this is what they're doing. Okay, so Confederates are starting to move up. Somebody asked me earlier, a gentleman asked me, I'm sorry y'all changed positions from the last stop, but a gentleman asked me, when do they come under fire? Now this is where, going back to the whole theme of this program, ladies and gentlemen, this is where you come up and you get to be that soldier. This is the exact same ground, this is the exact same day, and I'm only about 2 hours behind. Which is good at mat time, right? When we start walking up through here, I was going to put you in line. But when you start marching up through here and we start nearing the crest of this hill, that's the same crest that these soldiers saw in 1863. And when we start to crest that hill, and they knew it. They've been on many a battlefield. They are not naive out here. They knew on the other side of this hill, hell awaited. You think the losses have been bad now, and they have been suffering. We don't know. They didn't tabulate by the minute on what they were losing. I can tell you that Armistead's brigade had to double the stretcher bearers to get the wounded out of there before they even started the attack. That's how deadly that Union artillery fire was, raining down on them. By here, they're obviously moving forward, but the bloodbath is yet to come on the other side of that hill. Any questions? Anything I'm not making clear? No, there were Union troops, but we call them skirmishers, which is basically a thin line, say a soldier every 10, 20, 30 yards, not a formation. And what they're doing is they're like bird dogs. You know, you send the bird dog out front, hunt for you. But they're the ones that make sure that the main line doesn't get surprised. So yes, they're popping at them, but they don't stand out to these soldiers. No, not after what they're about to experience. None of them write about it. But yes, there was a thin line. Say like 40, 50, 60 of them. I think the 69th Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly.
With all the smoke, is there any idea how far the men would have been able to see?
No. You could probably see a little bit further than you could in the AC/DC concert, though. There, Bon Scott. All right. Scott, you wouldn't understand. I didn't come up with that randomly. I just want you to... Yes, sir.
It's got to be some of a long line. This is not a small formation of soldiers. Did any of Pickett's men actually go near the Kadori barn or Kadori farm when they maneuvered this direction?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was 6 questions,
Oh, yeah,
Lens.
but you're talking about maneuvers. You know how many Rebs ducked out in that barn? Yeah. And
Question 1.
I'll tell it right
5
now
to go
since you
for
brought
6
it up,
questions.
sir. If y'all remember the old series North and South, I believe this is from there. It may have been Blue and Gray, but I think it was North and South. They have this scene, if I remember correctly, where the Confederate and the Union soldier end up in a basement, and they basically decide who becomes the prisoner based on who wins and who loses. But they just have an informal truce. That happened in that farmhouse in that basement. The Confederates ducked out, some of them, a handful of them ducked out and went in the basement, and they found Union soldiers that were also ducking out. And so they made a parlay in that basement together and in the middle of the attack, or toward the end of the attack, they heard shouting. And the rebels down in the basement started yelling. They were glad because they said, "You're our prisoners." And the Yankees shot back to them and says, "No, that's our boys right there. You're our prisoners." And sure enough. Anything else? Yes.
Where's Pickett at this point? Is he following behind them?
If he's where he's supposed to be, he's behind us.
I was hoping Stephen Lang would do this. I'll do it. I'll do it for you, though. And you got to, this is a movie. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but this is a movie reference, all right? Okay, I'll do my best Stephen Lang, okay? Yeah. Professionally. My boys is on that horse. I can't see my boys. Thank you very much. So the answer,
Up there on the barn.
yeah, up there by the barn. So where was Pickett? Pickett, that's a very good question, ma'am. And I wish I had a better answer for you. Basically, I would be comfortable in saying that George Pickett is up and down the Emmitsburg Road as his axis of advance. Why does he do that? Because his brigade line stretches all the way down past where you can see. So he would be riding down there. The second thing, he is seen somewhere around the peach orchard at one point. All this is, it's like anything else. When was he there? How long was he there? They don't record that at what time, but he's seen in the peach orchard. And that would make sense because there's so much smoke that he would want to get further away so he could direct the operations. So Pickett is not up with his men. He gets a lot of flack, not officially, but unofficially throughout the Army, because there's 3 division commanders here. Pettigrew, as I said earlier, Trimble, and Pickett, and 2 of them are wounded. One of them is not.
Yeah.
So there is one account that says he was hiding. So I don't know, a doctor said that he came back there. The point is, let me say something about George Pickett. We've made a lot of jokes about him. I like George Pickett. I think he's a dandy of an officer. Just a character, he's fun to talk about. George Pickett's role in this attack is not to be out front. That is not the objective or the role of a division commander. So, he's not, if he led the charge, he would have been out of place. Then what are you going to do? He's the puppet master. He's the one that's ordering these brigades. And let me just be frank with you. George Pickett, and you're about to experience it right now, George Pickett can do nothing else once we cross this hill. Once we get astride of this hill up here, he's done. They're on their own. Basically everybody, it becomes every private becomes a general once they cross the road. It is too loud and they are moving. Folks, you don't sit there and debate this stuff, all right? Veteran infantry close with the enemy. You don't stand out front and brawl with them. Close with them as fast as you can. Now, obviously, I'm not going to push y'all like that, but that's what they're doing. They're moving quick. And so the officers, besides what little they can do, or they got them here, and now it's up to the private to carry it through. Does it make sense? Let's go finish this attack. Please, before you go, this is very important. Watch the ground. We have a lot of groundhogs out here, and I don't want anybody tripping on one of the holes. We will reassemble on the top of this hill. Please enjoy the look as you come up over the crest. That's exactly the worst. But I don't think it's substantially changed.
Are you Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listen to your podcast, man.
Oh, hi. What's your name?
Kyle.
Kyle.
Yep. Yeah, I love the
I don't know if that's
Ask
true.
a God, man. It's great.
Thank you. Glad you like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell all your friends.
Yeah. I do. The ones that are interested in the Civil War.
Tell the ones that aren't interested.
Yeah.
We need to convert them.
Good seeing you out here.
Where are you from?
We live up in Camp Hill.
Oh, all right, not far.
Yeah.
Well, next time you're down and it's a less hectic weekend, let me know and we'll go grab a beer or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man.
Okay, cool.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Hey, look, the insults being hurled around here. I get it. Yeah. I have got. What place did you say you were in? You don't have tape, do you? I have another. I've got all kind of treats for you that I didn't know that I had right here. I would like to introduce to you the great granddaughter of Confederate General James Kemper, who is on this talk right here. There you go. Got all kinds of stuff. You ready to volunteer yet? I like that. All right, we up? Okay, folks, we're now standing at the Emmitsburg Road, and now you can see back behind, if I could get the red seat apart right here, we can see the Union position. You see them right over there? That would have been stacked full of blue. When the Confederates, now look behind you, look at where you came from. You came up over the crest of this hill, and this is ground zero for whether you're going to get a gut check and whether you're going to go forward. You think you want to be a soldier? You think you could do it in the Civil War? You're going to figure it out right here, all right? Because they hit this fence. They hit this fence, and some old farmer, some unknown farmer in Pennsylvania had built this thing so stout that they couldn't get it down. And if you can't get the fence down, what's it going to do? What are you going to have to do? That's right. They had to climb it. I'm not going to demonstrate to you, but once they got up here, once they climbed up on the rail right here and they went up over the top, what does it do to the overshots? All the bullets are flying high. They're up here. When you climb this fence, guess what happens? They start toppling off these fences by the dozen. The main thing that this does, ladies and gentlemen, is it breaks the momentum of the charge. When you're infantry, I told you at the last stop, when you're veteran infantry, you close fast with the enemy. You don't waste time. The faster you can come into contact with them, the sooner it's over. One way or the other. Good or bad, get it over with. They get right here and that momentum is broken. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, they get into the roadway and it is just a bloodbath, as you can imagine. There'll be literally blood running in this road. And a lot of the men bless their hearts, especially with Pettigrew's division on the left flank. Not really as much Virginians, but still some. They get in this road bed and they just don't want to go any further. And guess what? They get to the other side. They got another fence. And they got to climb that one. And once they do that, they've got to reform. It breaks the momentum. And if you ever look at the burial map, I believe it's called the Elliott burial map of the Confederate dead, you can look it up online, you will find that there are 2 mass trenches along this roadway. I believe one of them held like 250 and another one held 500. But that's all being shot right here. Heavy damage. A lot. Any questions?
How deep was the road? And how high were the banks?
Well, I think the fences were closer to the road. The road was not as wide as it is today, but I would say it's about the same. They haven't altered it dramatically. That's a very good question. But obviously with modern times they widened it, not deepened it. So yeah, it looks pretty much the same. What about you back there?
Someone is asking a question that we cannot understand because he's far away.
Even the guys on horseback. Some of them are starting to get wounded, though. Effa Hunt, the guy that saw Spessard, is wounded right here at that farmhouse. His brother, one of the Berkeley brothers from one of the 4 brothers that were here during Pickett's charge, one of them looks over and sees his other brother wounded. A piece of blood started shooting out of his thigh where he got clipped by a bullet. And he saw his brother hobble around that house right there. Well, he went a few steps further and then he got wounded. And he went behind the house expecting to find his brother who had just seen hobble behind there and he wasn't there. Can you imagine? And all of this is transpiring in is chaos, is what I'm saying. I'm trying to make order out of chaos, pure chaos. We're going to walk on down. You see what I have. I hope they're not here for me. We're going to find out. Surely they would have brought more than that.
We're not from Ohio.
All right, guys, so what do you think so far? I'm here with, by the way, Matt and Alex. What do you think so far? It's almost over, but have you ever done this before, Matt?
I have not. This is my first
Alex,
time.
how about you?
I have not done it with the Ranger, no.
What were you going to say?
No, this is my first time. I'm glad that Matt Atkinson's leading it.
You're a big fan of Matt Atkinson.
I am.
You think Matt should come on addressing Gettysburg?
I think if Matt Atkinson truly loves the Battle of Gettysburg, he will be on addressing Gettysburg, which is the Battle of Gettysburg podcast. Really, it's the podcast of record, no doubt.
Yes.
Well, it is. That's what they say in New York, at least. And Alex, do you agree that he should come on addressing Gettysburg?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he's the Ranger everybody says he is, I don't see how he can't.
Exactly. It's kind of like you lose credibility the longer you're not on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. In fact, that's what I hear the people back in Washington in the Department of the Interior are saying.
I mean, some people are saying, why is Matt Atkinson ducking addressing Gettysburg? Right. I mean, that's the question.
What is he afraid of?
What is he afraid of? What questions is Matt Atkinson trying to dodge?
Right. How? And a lot of people are afraid of that because my questions are searing. Larry King and Barbara Walters and the big Oprah have nothing on me.
No, not at all. I mean, you are basically like Larry King, Oprah, Diane Sawyer, and Barbara Walters.
You could throw some more men in there, please. Don
Lemon from CNN.
All right, it's better than nothing. Well, shit, now I forgot where I was going to go with that. Oh, yes. Those searing questions that I ask him are such questions as, where was Pickett?
Good, very much so.
We actually have water here. We actually have water available here if you need some. Okay, courtesy of the National Park Service. I was planning on crossing over. If you need to linger and get some water, please do that. All right, because we're just going to reform on the other side of the road. But be prepared when you get up here. If you could pass the word down the line that we have water, I would appreciate that.
Hydrated. They don't play those boys from Alabama.
That's
How
right.
much longer do we have to go? I mean, I've got some water, but
I can see the angle from here, so I believe we'll be okay.
I can see our cars from here.
Exactly.
And I can smell dinner from here.
Well, this
Home's
is,
just over beyond those hills.
Washington's
boys.
just above that. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Home's-
Yeah. Home is just over that hill. The Park Service has graciously brought some water.
Did he take it?
Then he threw it out the window as it drove away.
Did you know that I have Pickett's lost report?
Oh, maybe. Okay.
That's one of the few things that Matt makes Matt speechless right there.
Yeah. All right. Here.
All right, real fast. Is everybody over? I think we are, right? Is that it? All right. How do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? Y'all want to form a line in advance?
Yes.
Y'all want to do it? All right, I want you to align on this fence. Everybody make me a line down this fence, and we're going to make the final attack on here, all right? All right, and you can get the whole experience as you go. You won't miss a thing. Well, that's going to decide itself. There's that corner, but I don't know. I just go until you got room. You want to do the yell? You can do the yell. Or take a seat.
How far down did the line go this way?
The line went down basically where you see that first building.
We are now getting in line to charge the final leg here up to the angle. Matt leading the way, and the rest of us following.
All right, we're going to have to go through the weeds if we do it.
Going through the weeds.
If you didn't hear, I'm trying to shake out a line. We're going to walk right up there. We're going to make a battle line. We're going to walk right through this weeds. All right, folks, all right, we're getting near the end. If I could, ladies and gentlemen, the Confederates, they crash over the wall. This would have been in the area of Garnett's brigade crossing, and soon Armistead's brigade would be coming right behind it. Kemper's brigade would have been behind the Cadore house and moving toward us. Pickett's men, as I said in the beginning of the program, would be out front. They would be out front, and the rest of the Confederates, Pettigrew and Trimble, will be lagging behind. When they hit this wooden fence right through here, ladies and gentlemen, you can look down the road here today, and basically, the closer we get to those monuments, the thicker the bodies. In other words, the casualties increase with each step that we go. Each step. You're literally, when you cross this field right here, stepping on at almost every spot where somebody fell. That's what I want you to get out of this. This is the ultimate sacrifice. Now up here, these Union boys they would have looked at like a dark black uniform or something along those lines. We all know that it was basically blue here today. But the United States flag would have been flying along with their state colors, mostly Pennsylvania colors up there. There is one thing, though, when you use your imagination, which I want you to imprint in your mind, where you see that copse of trees, now you see why the Confederates are guiding on it. We've crossed Emmitsburg Road. You see that obelisk? See the gentleman that's got the, what do you call it, the Riddler shirt on, that's got his back to us right now, the green and shirt right there? Okay, so, still doesn't know. You see that obelisk? Right there in that area would have been the 69th Pennsylvania, and they were flying not only the United States colors, but the green flag of Ireland. Right there. So add that in. and put smoke everywhere, hanging on this field. Folks, one Union soldier wrote that when the Confederates were right here where you are, that there was so much smoke that they couldn't see the Rebs. They could see their knees or their legs, and then this was obscured. And they started firing at this point. The Union cannon started firing canister, which is a tin can filled with lead balls. When those lead balls they were in a tin can, when it was fired, the tin can would disintegrate, and the lead balls would make like a shotgun. In a Napoleon, a 12-pound Napoleon up there, they would have fired 28 1.5-inch iron balls in one charge, in one round, with 2 pounds of powder behind it. 2 pounds. If you wanted to double the damage, you'd tear off a powder bag and stick another can on top of it. Then you got double canister. What would that be? 56 balls going down range. The Union soldier wrote when they opened up with that canister, they couldn't see the Confederates. But up above the smoke, when the canister struck, you could see this red mist appear in the air, like somebody was throwing up, red paint or something. And up above that, shortly thereafter, was body parts flying all over the place. Guns, accoutrements, hats, arms, heads, all flying all over the place. It's a macabre scene. Now you're sitting there, or marching here, and you're going down through here, and all of a sudden the guy next to you gets hit by a piece of canister. It goes through him, and it streams his intestines out behind him about 10 feet. Oh, and guess what? He's your childhood buddy. You know what you have to do? You got to keep going, because that's your duty, and you got to leave him behind. I hope I'm capturing for you some of really what the horror was. How horrible, I don't know. I don't know if I can describe it enough to I hope I do. I hope I did. All right, let's do something a little fun here. How about we practice the rebel yell? Some of y'all want to do that. Now I started to say damn Yankees, but I shouldn't curse on the program. Now you Yankees are not familiar with the rebel yell. You know there's actually recordings of it. If you go up on YouTube, some radio stations recorded some Confederate veterans in the 1920s, and you can hear it. The Museum of the Confederacy put together a program several years ago, and they multiplied the yells, and you can hear what it would have sounded like with thousands of voices. It's very eerie. All right? But we're going to do our version. We'll see how we can do. All right? So, let's practice. Nobody step off. I know the old Reb over here is ready to go. All right? We're going to have to hold back 1 second. All right. On 3, let's see what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3. That ain't bad. I should have got you to lead it there, Corporal. Right over there. All right, folks, we're going to try to maintain this line if we could. If some of you want to, if you're not going to maintain the line, you might back off and take the trail that's over there, parallels that fence, and there's a gap in the wall. The one thing I want to emphasize is that we're trying to preserve this stone wall up here, and we would prefer that you not climb over it this year. All right? Until we can get some kind of plan, a semblance, or access is the word I'm looking for, okay? Mechanized infantry. Troy, you need to step aside. All right, so if you think about it, we're going to go straight forward. We will meet. Let's not cross the wall. Do you see where that tree is? You see where that tree, where those people are sitting? We're going to gather right there, okay? So we won't get disoriented. All right. Who's ready?
I'm ready.
All ready.
All right. Folks, it's the 158th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. It's July 3rd. And I want you to know that it's been an extreme pleasure to be out here for you today. We're going to give them a yell, and we're going to punch it on in just like Pickett did 158 years ago. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
Mike Lentz is walking through a briar patch, it appears. Let's get over here to Mike Lentz and see what's going on with him. How are we doing, Mike?
Well, I'm a Yankee. I can't do a rebel yell to save my life.
But are you doing okay? Have you twisted your ankle today? I did. In a gopher hole.
You're distracting me is not helping at all right now. I'm focusing on the road in front of me. Well, the tick field in front of me. But
the infested grass in front of you. I'm glad I wore long pants today. Aren't you, Mike?
Very glad I wore. Yeah. Well, maybe not.
The thing
no,
is,
aren't you glad I wore long pants?
This is treacherous. This is treacherous because there's a poison ivy hidden among the
Oh
tall
yes,
grass.
it's everything. You know, and it's interesting. We all eventually just go on the path.
Right.
It was fun for a minute.
Don't forget the giveaway prizes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Get my text.
Doing a YouTube channel?
I did.
I gave my book to him. Yeah, it's good. I said, call Matt Calorie for movie production stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. What'd you tell him? What'd you say to him for real?
I said, hey, I've been working on this book for 10 years. It's been writing it the last 5. There's a character in this book for you. If you read it, you'll know who it is. Enjoy it. He said, thanks, man. Thanks. It's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, he's nice about it. He smiled.
Did you hear hit the pavement when he threw it out the window after he drove away?
No, I'm gonna go pick it up. I'm gonna follow his route and find out where he threw it out at.
He probably was polite and waited a mile.
It might be like Hunt for October with Ronald Reagan, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, you never know. It could turn into something.
Tom Clancy, that's how he got famous.
Yeah.
Handed the book to the right person.
Okay. Let's see what we got. You hungry? Let me talk. Ready? Okay, folks, we're now standing here at the famous or infamous angle. You don't know what the angle is. This is the point where the line, or the stone wall runs together and bends back at right angles. In other words, this is where the Union position juts out in front of the rest of the line. Now, folks, I want you to take a look behind you. That's where we came from. That's 8/10 of a mile. I got this kid behind me saying, "Hi, Daddy. Hi, Daddy." And I keep thinking, my God, another pavement. Wait a minute. They're friends of mine. I can make that joke. Okay. All right. 8/10 of a mile. Look at where we crossed the road. Look at how they came up through here. When they're coming forward, Kemper has joined with Garnett. That would have happened right over here. I've waited till you could see it. I'm sorry I waited to the end, but we'll back up a little bit now. You can see it. Kemper's brigade would have come right behind that barn. I'm doing this for his granddaughter here, and moved at right angles until they joined with Garnett. About the time that the Confederates hit the stone wall, if you look to your right out in that field, in the distance, Vermont men are going to start to swing out at right angles. The 13th and 16th Vermont are going to hit the flank of Kemper, and Kemper's men are going to be literally in places where you see that big bush down to your right on that little knoll. Confederates would literally be shooting in two different directions. If you look to your left, you will see Pickett's buffet. And Somebody say it. Just charge it. All right? Oh, come on. That's funny. About half the Confederates ducked out at Pickett's buffet and the KFC buffet. We've never had Kentucky chicken. But seriously, that is the left flank of the Confederate attack. Coming up through there. Now you can see the full front. The Confederates hit the stone wall. This is the first shelter that they've seen since they advanced. What would you do if you were a Confederate soldier? I would stop, and I would stop here and shelter myself, and they lose momentum. The road broke them. They had a hard time getting past the road, especially the left flank under Pettigrew and Trimble. And then they got up here and they stopped. And the momentum has stopped. Facing them, let me talk a little bit about the Union right now, because I haven't done that, because we're just now here. Right here, ladies and gentlemen, this position was defended by the brigade of Alexander Webb, the Philadelphia Brigade. They were all Pennsylvanians, and they were lined up here along this stone wall. A lot of people, and I think that it goes without saying, and especially Robert E. Lee and the Confederate side, at the Battle of Gettysburg, most people failed to note that the motivation, a lot of motivation, was behind the Northern troops at this battle. Why? Because in this battlefield, stating the obvious, these Northern soldiers were defending their homes. Literally on this ground, standing up here, duking it out with these Confederates. But you look here, where this nice family is. You got the best seat in the house, right there, front and center, leaning against a tree. This is where the Union line ends, and it begins back there with the road. See what I'm talking about? All right, so what are the Confederates going to do? Well, you see the gentleman right over here in the black T-shirt. Wave to everybody. There are no Union troops right there. What are the rebels going to do naturally? They're going to keep moving. And so what are they eventually going to go behind? This line right here. And these Yankees, these Union troops are shooting. This is hand-to-hand combat, folks. Point-blank range. You knew if you shot somebody. In most battles, you never knew if you hit anybody or not because you're too far off. You could always pass it off that maybe I didn't shoot anybody. Maybe I didn't hurt anybody. Here, you knew it. Men are shooting each other at point-blank range. Bayonets are being hurled back and forth across this stone wall. Officers are using their swords, anything they got, in order to inflict damage. The 69th Pennsylvania is right down there where you see that small obelisk. There are portions of the 71st Pennsylvania here. The 106th and the 72nd are back behind in double lines back by the road. These Pennsylvanians fight hard, but when they are outflanked, this portion of the line starts to open up all the way down to the 69th monument. I just pointed out to you. And there's a hole. My God, look at where you came from. These Confederates have crossed this field. They're bunched up against this stone wall, but there is a gap in the line right here. There is a window, a glimmer of hope. But the line stopped. And you and I could not talk to each other. You'd have to be ear to ear and shout to get above the din of this battle. It's that loud. The officers can make no commands because they can't be heard. So how do you get the line going? You have to do something. Among these people right here, among the Union, I came across one of the interns, Miss Elizabeth, right up here. Would you want to come up here? How about a round of applause for the most underpaid employee at Gettysburg National all the way from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Well, guess what? I always like when the college kids show up because they start doing new research. And she pointed out to me an account here that I had never heard before of two Union soldiers. We talked about Captain Spessard on the Confederate side. On the Union side over here, there was 2 individuals with the 69th Pennsylvania right down there. John Harvey and John Harvey Jr. Do I need to tell you anything more about who they are? Irishmen. John Harvey Sr. was a pre-war lawyer and a native of, somebody's going to have to help me here, Tyrone County in Ireland. Like the Spessards, he too stood on this field with his boy, John Harvey Jr. And just like Spessard, during the bombardment, a Confederate shell is going to come in here, right over there. It's going to explode, and his boy is going to catch a piece of shrapnel in the head. I bet that thing split like a melon right in front of his father. Can you imagine the horror of that? You know what John Harvey did? He picked up his musket and he went to fighting against these rebels who had just killed his boy. And from all accounts, we don't have any accounts saying he didn't fight well. He's not listed in the derelicts of that day. But after losing his son and returning to the ranks, he fought on. But 2 weeks after the battle, ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks after the battle, he deserted. Left. Gone. He was found. What can I say? When you got nothing to lose. He had nothing left. He hit the bottle hard. His arrest warrant for his desertion stated that John Harvey was 5'11", 46 years old, sallow complexion, blue eyes, and gray hair. He was eventually found in Washington, D.C., lying in a gutter. No weapon, no accoutrements, nothing but his uniform on, and stone cold drunk. Passed out. He was taken to the hospital, and the doctor diagnosed him with scurvy and diarrhea. I don't know which one The doctor said it didn't matter anyway what he had, scurvy or diarrhea, because John Harvey was dying of alcohol consumption. He killed himself. He killed himself, folks, because he was over his son and the Battle of Gettysburg. He went to Washington, D.C. and drank himself to death. John Harvey, and the reason I'm telling you this story is John Harvey's story will never appear, his name will never appear in the casualty rolls of the 69th Pennsylvania. They won't. But he is another casualty of the Battle of Gettysburg. I'm going to visit him one day because he's buried in the National Cemetery in Alexandria, Virginia. I'm going to find him one day. I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. Bring you, I wouldn't know. Yeah, he doesn't probably need another drink. He was survived, unlike the Spessards, he was survived by his wife and 2 grown children. How do you think that news hit home? The line is still stopped. Going back to June Kimball. You remember the guy that said he was going to do his duty? June Kimball. Give me 15 minutes, Lord. Give me 15 minutes. And I'll let him go. June Kimball wrote, this is a good story. I used in this battle a Mississippi rifle. Do you know what a Mississippi rifle is? It's not very good, as you're about to see, with which I kill squirrels with. Considering myself a fairly good marksman, while shooting from this rock, I think it's right here. Actually, it'd probably be right here where you're sitting. In this, he was right here. It's the reason I'm reading you this story. He's behind a rock. I don't know where else it could be. I noticed a Federal soldier clothed in blue pants and a red shirt standing some 50 or 60 yards to my left. Does that not look like it to you? With his left foot, this is how well he remembered him after the war. He's talking about the Union soldier. With his left foot upon a low place in the rock fence, shooting at the retreating Confederates. In my effort to pick him off, with good rest across my rock, I deliberately fired 5 shots at this red shirt. If I touched him, he gave no evidence of my splendid marksmanship. In my disgust, I turned to my boy comrade and said to him, "Shoot that fellow over there in that red shirt to my left." Can you imagine just having a casual conversation? Hey, shoot him. In reply, the young soldier exclaimed in a loud tone, "Why, damn him, I have shot at him 4 times already." And with that, he said, "I am going out of here." He sprang to his feet. This happened right here where you're standing. He sprang to his feet, turning his back to the enemy. And in that instant, I distinctly heard the bullet strike the back of his head. He fell upon his face and was dead without a struggle. He was a member of Armistead's Virginia Brigade. He remembered this. He wore a neat, rather new dark gray uniform. Although a mere youth myself, I felt so much older than that bright-eyed, fair-faced, brave boy looked that a real sorrow passed in my heart, as lying by him I knew that his gallant spirit had winged its flight to its God. The attack is at a halt. As I told you, Vermont men are closing in. Over here where I pointed out Pickett's Buffet, the 8th Ohio is coming out. The 111th New York is starting to swing out at right angles, and they're starting to push back. Most of the Confederates from Pettigrew's division are not going to cross the road, but a handful of them are up there by the Bryant barn, which you probably went to earlier. What are you going to do? Going back to June Kimball. He's deliberating. At this moment, I deliberated as to my own course. Shall or shall I not surrender, rather than attempt to run the gauntlet of fire from innumerable guns? My first conclusion was to surrender. I laid my gun to one side, bowed up my body, unbuckled my cartridge belt, and was ready. But this conclusion and preparation for the safe side of the question was quickly recalled as prison bars loomed up before me. I bowed up again, rebuckled my belt, grasped my gun, sprang to my feet, and made the run for liberty and won out. The nearby zip of unfriendly bullets reminded me of the danger of back wounds, and the more or less disgrace that clings to such wounds caused me to about face. In other words, he's running, but he turned around and faced back toward the Union because he didn't want to get shot in the back. Isn't that amazing, ma'am? And so that caused me to about face and, quote, gallantly back out, which run and back out was safely accomplished without so much as a scratch of clothing or flesh. It is due perhaps to state that when I left my rock, the red shirt man still stood in his hole in the wall, seemingly a very live Yankee, and no doubt returned my compliments of shots as I made for tall timber. I, at least, was very cognizant of very many nearby led messengers as they zipped on either side as I crossed the ground. But thank you to God for the Yankees' poor marksmanship. All right. We're going to do this. I'll conclude with this. How you going to get this line moving? We're going to back up a little bit. How you get these rebs moving? What are you going to do? Think. What are you going to do?
Show an example.
That's right. What is the colors good for? That's right. What happens when the colors go forward? What happens when the colors go backwards? That's right. So what do? Colonel Raleigh Martin, who was leading the center regiment of Armistead's brigade, is up there, and by now Garnett is down. He would be killed right out here in this field somewhere. His body would never be recovered. His sword will be recovered in a Baltimore pawn shop after the war. Some Union soldier went broke and pawned it, hawked it. Over here, right down the wall, near the stone wall, James Kemper was wounded. He was shot through the abdomen and the ball lodged against his spine. He was so close to the Union line that he thought he saw the man that shot him. The Union soldier, seeing a big rebel officer out there with a lot of spaghetti on his arm, so to speak, ran out there to haul him back in, and his men saved him. That is portrayed in the movie, and that is accurate. It's a very, very, 3-second scene, but they do portray that. That is James Kemper being saved by his own men. He would make it all the way back. He is supposed to die. He does not. He will survive. And hence, you are here today. So you can thank that. There's one general left out of Pickett's division, folks. Who is that? Armistead. And oh, Armistead. Armistead. Between him and Richard Garnett, folks, between those two, there were over 50 years of service to this country when they marched out on this field. And what do I mean by service? I mean sitting in the barren wastelands of Florida, out in the Wild West, fighting with boredom, protecting the country. 50 years. Armistead's sitting over there against the wall. Colonel Raleigh Martin is there with him from the 53rd, one of his subordinates. And Armistead says to him, we can't stay here. He can see it. He can see him coming in. We got to do something. And Raleigh Martin, Colonel, yells back at him and says, then we'll go forward then. And Armistead, who had crossed the wall, crossed the field with his hat on the tip of his sword. If you want to picture it, it wasn't a cavalry saber. I've actually seen it. It was a straight sword. Not that long, actually. But it was a straight sword, and he had it held aloft. If you want to get real technical about it, his sword had punched a hole through the hat, and the hat had fallen down to the hilt of the sword. Armistead took that hat, and he ran it back up to the point on the sword, and he held it aloft because his men knew what that hat was. As long as they could see the hat, they knew Armistead was there. He held it aloft across this wall, right over here, probably almost to that monument, somewhere in that area, that obelisk, I should say. And he said the famous words. What did he say, ladies and gentlemen? You Gettysburg buffs better know this.
In the cold steel.
That's right. Give them the cold steel, boys. Who will follow me? And over the wall Armistead goes. When he did that, the Confederate flag bearers went forward with him, and when the flag bearers went forward, what did the men do? They went forward. And when they crossed over into the wall, we can't see it, but where the cars are parked back here, as soon as they crossed, Armistead's yelling at them, turn the guns on them, boys, turn the guns on them, the day is ours. You know, classic moment in American history. Standing back there where those cars are, all of a sudden, rising from the ground is a complete new line of blue infantry. And guess what they do? They level their muskets. Over here, the Irishmen are giving and taking, but they aren't going. And the 69th Pennsylvania is shooting them from one direction. The 106th is shooting them, 72nd are shooting them from another, and it becomes a killing zone right here over this stone wall. Armistead probably had, we don't know, 100, 150 men, some say 250, crossed the wall with him. All of a sudden, Armistead, Union soldier said it looked like Armistead got punched in the stomach. And he turns, and he tries to catch himself on one of the cannons he was about to grasp. And when he did, he missed it, and he went down in a heap right through there. He's get hit through the arm and he's hit through the leg simultaneously. After Armistead goes, the men, I don't know how long they stayed, but it wasn't long. 5 minutes maybe for this whole thing. But Armistead, where he went down, basically marks the furthest advance by Pickett's division in the Battle of Gettysburg. I can tell you one more story, but I can't tell you much about it. One Union soldier said toward the end of the fighting, this is after Armistead went down, they were arguing. The veterans, the North Carolinians especially, if y'all from North Carolina, y'all didn't like Virginia worth a bit, but they started arguing over who went the furthest. Virginia, North Carolina, Mississippi wants a little action in there, etc. One Union soldier said that he was standing in that battle line back there, and that it was over. And out of the smoke came this single Rev charging for him. And they were watching him, because they weren't in any real danger at this, relatively speaking. But here comes this rebel rushing right at him, and the men start shouting, surrender, surrender. And he won't do it. And so one of his comrades pulled his rifle up to his shoulder and dropped him right in front of the Union line, just like you shoot an animal. Dropped him right back there on the tool road, and that Union soldier said that unknown Confederate soldier that day was the high water mark of the Confederacy. It's the farthest he ever saw. It's over. And you're like June Kimball at this point. Are you going to surrender? Or are you going to try your luck? What are you going to do? All right. The battle ends. Robert E. Lee sent 13,000 men across this field. In 45 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, 45 minutes, Robert E. Lee suffered 6,000 casualties. Do you know how much blood that is? That's roughly 3,000 killed and wounded. There's a lot of wounded and captured. We get down into some categories in there, etc., etc. But that's a lot of people. One Union veteran wrote that after the battle was over, that he thought that he could get to that police car, that ranger car over there. He could make that car without ever touching the ground. Do you know how many bodies it takes to be able to do that? Another Union soldier said he looked out on this field and it looked like it was moving because the wounded soldiers were crawling around the dead. And so it just it looked weird. Do you know how much that took? Union account. Frank Haskell, one of the best accounts of this battle. When the vortex of battle passion had subsided, hopes, fears, rage, joy, of which the maddest and the noisiest was the last, and we were calm enough to look about us, we saw that as with us the fight with the 3rd Division was ended, and that in that division was a repetition of the scenes immediately about us. In that moment, the judgment almost refused to credit the senses. Let me read that again. In that moment, the judgment almost refused to credit the senses. That's with an S. Are these object wretches about us, whom our men are now disarming and driving together in flocks, the jaunty men of Pickett's division, whose sturdy lines and flashing arms but a few moments since were sweeping up the slope to destroy us? Are these red cloths that our men toss about in derision, the fiery Southern crosses, thrice ardent, the battle flags of the rebellion that wave defiance at the wall? We know, but so sudden has been the transition, we yet can scarce believe that it is all over. The Union is going to suffer approximately around 1,500 casualties, we think. And in some places, there would literally be, ladies and gentlemen, Union and Confederate dead piled on top of each other. There were more than one instance where a wounded man had to be pulled out from underneath dead bodies because he could not make his way out from all that literally dead weight that was on top of him. Am I making my point to you? That's what ends up happening. And let me say, because I'm getting to the conclusion, and you fine folks have been very, very, very patient with me. I want to say this because it's been on my mind. I didn't come out here to say it, and I don't have it written in my notes. But it's 2021. It's 158 years since then, folks. And we don't know how bad it was. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face how bad it was. But we don't know because we've never experienced anything. Most of us have never experienced anything like that on that scale. Folks, this battlefield is a testimony to what happens when two groups of the common people, when two groups of people quit communicating with each other and they stop compromising. This is what happens, and it's not pretty. It is deadly, and it is human. My God, I can't imagine. I got 3 kids. I would not want my kid to die. I can't think anything I want my kid to. I can't. And during this time, they prayed, and the families, while this battle was raging, they were praying back in Georgia, and they were praying in Massachusetts, and they were praying in Indiana, and they were praying in Mississippi. This is what happens. In conclusion, Colonel Eppa Hunton from the 8th Virginia, he was wounded right over there, as I said earlier. He said, after the war, it is very sad to contemplate our failure at Gettysburg. It is sad to think of the loss of so many heroes as fell at Gettysburg, even if their death accomplished a great victory. But when their death accomplished nothing, it makes the reflection still more sad. Accomplished nothing. All that human loss. He went on to say, I have frequently been invited to go over the battlefield of Gettysburg, but I could never summon the courage to do so. If I were to go over the line of our charge, I would say, here fell Captain Green. Here fell Captain Bissell. Here fell Captain Grayson. Here fell Captain Ayres, and a host of others. It would nearly kill me to see where so many brave men fell, all of them among the best friends that I ever had. When they got back to the other side, those men would never be the same. And most of them would never come back. You know why? Because they didn't want to relive it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not relive it. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. As Elvis would say, thank you very much. All right, if I could do something so I won't get in trouble with the superiors, there is a walkway to your left. If you'd like to come up, there's some flat stones.
Need a Corps badge or other insignia for your uniform? Then check out the Badge Maker. Here's what some of his satisfied customers had to say. Miranda said, I ordered an identification disc from Joe and it's fantastic. He hand-stamped it exactly as I wanted. Greg said, my unit has purchased from him in the past quality badges and good service. And Jerry S. says, the Badge Maker is the go-to place for accurate replica Civil War badges. So go to CivilWarCorpsBadges.com and attach a message with your order saying you heard about him on Addressing Gettysburg.